As always, a lot of action took place on the athletic front last week at IPFW. On this week's edition of Mastodon Spotlight, we'll take a look back and see what happened with women's softball, men's baseball, men's tennis, and men's volleyball. We have special guests with us, the head coach of IPFW women's softball, Keith Fisher, and his pitching coach, Dennis Smith, and sports information director, Mike Joel, will come along a little bit later as well. Our program is called Mastodon Spotlight, and it's coming up next right here on College 56 Sports.
Well, I was 10 when I first got involved with drugs. I skipped school because, nobody cared. I was on drugs, and my mom didn't really care because she was on drugs. She was never home. I was in 8th grade for like 3 years. I was heading nowhere. I just thought the only way I can make something out of my life is that if I get an education, I don't want to be a loser, some loser getting high all the time. I want to make something out of it.
Hi again, everybody. I'm Mike Maz. Welcome once again to Mastodon Spotlight. Well, as I said a moment ago, a busy week, as every week seems to be here at IPFW on the athletic front. Let's do our weekly review of what took place, and we'll start off with men's tennis. The women's tennis team was idle, but Coach Eric Burns' men's team was in action. They had 2 matches last week. They took on the Bulls of the University of Buffalo up in upstate western New York, and fell on the short end of a 7-0 score. And then they traveled down to Warsaw, technically a home match, but they took on the Crusaders of Valparaiso University, and they played better, lost a tough match 4-3. They did have 2 doubles victories. At number 1 doubles, Michael Parker and Daniel Jackson defeated their opponent 8-3. And at the number 3 doubles, Michael Chase Jr. and Billy Ruxton won by a score of 8-5. The only singles victory was at number 2 singles. Michael Parker defeated his opponent 6-4, 6-4. IPFW playing better, but they're playing awfully good opponents. But they did lose 2 matches over the weekend on the road. That takes care of tennis. Now let's take a quick look at baseball. Weather messed up things last week a little bit for IPFW. They were supposed to have taken on Toledo, University of Toledo, last Wednesday, I believe, and that was rained out, or last Tuesday. And then they were supposed to play Central Michigan here as well, and the field wasn't ready. And Coach Billy Gernon moved the Central Michigan game down to Indianapolis. And Mastodons took it on the chin. Tough loss to the Chippewas, 2-1. Jason Horvath, the ace of the staff, went 8 innings, gave up 2 runs on 5 hits, walked 4, and struck out 6. But just wasn't quite good enough. Central won that game 2-1. And the Toledo game, which was rained out, was rescheduled for this past Monday. And tough going for David Zachary. Couldn't get out of the first inning. The Rockets scored 5 runs in the first inning, 5 more runs in the 6th inning, took a 10-0 lead. IPFW came back with 3 in the 6th and 3 in the 7th to cut it to 10-6, but final score was IPFW losing to Toledo 12-7. Jacob Abramson had 3 hits, Brent Allwine had 2 hits, and Ryan Kenya had 2 hits to lead the offensive attack for IPFW there. Tough losses to both Central Michigan and Toledo for the baseball team. Better news on the volleyball front. 2 big matches on the road last week. First of all, Loyola of Chicago, a team that defeated the Volleydons here at the Gates Center about 3 weeks ago. Good news this time around. IPFW upsets the Ramblers in 4, winning by scores of 36-34, 28-30, 30-24, and 30-28. The big news here, Jeff Patak, and I think, John, if you want to go ahead and play some of those highlights. Jeff Patak, the senior out of Hamburg, New York, had a career-high 43 kills against Loyola. And hopefully we'll have the highlights, a couple of highlights of Jeff in a moment. 43 kills, only 5 errors in 63 attempts. That is a .603 hitting percentage. The 43 kills, highest by anybody in the country this year. Beats the next best mark by 7. 43 kills. The Dons, big match win over Loyola. That was Friday night. And then on Saturday night, they traveled to Dubuque, Iowa, took on Clark College, and defeated Clark by scores of 30-23, 30-17, and 30-17. Jeff only played the first 2 sets of that match, had 10 kills, but 2 big wins. And for his efforts, Jeff Patak was named both the MIVA Player of the Week and the AVCA, the American Volleyball Coaches Association National Player of the Week. He had a total hitting percentage in the 2 matches. He had 53 kills and .883 kill per game and a hitting percentage of .618. Phenomenal week for Jeff Patak. Kudos to Jeff and the team. 2 big conference wins. Jeff will be Ernie Ball's special guest on his show. Stay tuned to watch the Ernie Ball Show here on Channel 56 as well. That's men's volleyball. And then finally, women's softball. Coach Keith Fisher's team went to West Lafayette last weekend, took on the likes of nationally ranked Michigan, Loyola, Butler, and the host Purdue Boilermakers. They split the 4 games, lost to Michigan, lost to Purdue, but beat Loyola and beat Butler. They're 8-11 overall. When we come back after this break, we're going to speak directly to Coach Keith Fisher and pitching coach Dennis Smith and talk more in depth about the women's softball team. But that interview will take place when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
As time flows on, there are places we return to again and again. Places that comfort us with their serenity. Places that astound us with their beauty. Places where our memories come to life. Precious places. Timeless places. Places that with your help can endure forever. I'm Paul Newman. Help the Nature Conservancy save the last great places around the world.
I was a liberal arts major in college.
I didn't speak a second language.
What could I?
What could I offer the Peace Corps?
The answer surprised me. I served in South Africa teaching HIV/AIDS awareness.
Working with my students in Nicaragua was a great experience. We taught each other a lot about our countries and cultures.
This is the Peace Corps today.
Redefine your world. Join the Peace Corps.
Apply now at peacecorps.gov.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. Time now to talk about a sport that's slowly but surely gaining notoriety here on campus. And the sport in question is women's softball. And we have the dynamic duo with us. On my immediate right, pitching coach Dennis Smith, and on Dennis's right, the head honcho for IPFW softball, Keith Fisher. The Lone Ranger and Tonto. Gentlemen, welcome back to the program.
Thanks, Mike.
You're actually in town, and that's an oddity. Softball is finally underway, and I want to take a little bit of time, and I appreciate the time because I know as we're taping this, you've got a doubleheader scheduled later this afternoon, so we'll try to get everything we can in as short a period of time as we can. But softball is underway. You've been on the road. You've played some tournaments. You're getting some success because I believe as we're taping this interview, 8-11?
8-11.
8 wins, 11 losses, and as you mentioned off air, Denny, 8 Division I wins. Last year you only had 5 for the whole season. So let's go back first to the start of the season since we haven't had you for a while. You went to New Mexico. When it was cold and snowy here, you guys got on a bird and went to New Mexico and played some very good competition. Let's talk about that tournament first because you had 4 good ball games out there.
Had four real good ball games. We won one. We were 1-4. Played some close games. I think one game got out of reach, but we beat a good Miami of Ohio team. It was a great ball game. We won 1-0, and ball games like that is softball as far as I'm concerned. 1-0, 2-1, 3-2. So we came out of there with some real hopes and desires, and we came back with some things we needed to improve on also after every game. But when we came out of there, we felt good, and then we got ready to go to down to Florida to Orlando and to some really nice warm weather.
When you get ready to start the season, and technically, if we want to play this game, this is our first year as an official Division I school. As Mark Pope said in a function over the weekend, 6 months and a couple of weeks that we've officially been Division I since September the 1st. When you look at this, the move to Division I, you've got a young ball club. You guys have really busted chops on the recruiting trail. You've got some good young talent here now at the university. Realistically, what were your goals at the start of the season? Because you're playing some very good Division I opponents.
Well, we have a tough schedule. We have a lot of Big Ten teams on our schedule, a lot of mid-major teams, which we consider ourselves. But our goal was to win every ball game we can win, and we would take one game at a time. And that's what we've done as a team. I think with the success of our team is the entire team. It's an entire team effort. It's just not 9 players. We have 16 young ladies, and I'll tell you what, everybody contributes in some factor, and that's what happened down in Florida. We saw some really good results of the entire team.
Well, let's talk about Florida a little bit. And I guess before we really talk about Florida, let's talk about the fact that not only your team, but Billy Gernon's baseball team had trouble in terms of dealing with Mother Nature, because you had each of you had a number of games that were canceled due to inclement weather. From a coach's standpoint, you work all winter. You know, we're a northern school to begin with, and I don't know if that's a disadvantage or an advantage, but compared to the fact that some of the schools that you played, like I think it was Mississippi State, it's one of them,
Sure.
in New Mexico, they got the warm weather, and they're basically almost a year-round program. So I guess in one way it is a disadvantage, because here we had a pretty rough winter as compared to the last 4 or 5 years, but you're indoors, you're with your own teammates, you get tired of seeing them, you're ready to kick some tail against anybody, and then all of a sudden you make one trip, you're supposed to play a couple other trips, and you can't do it. From a coach's standpoint, how frustrating was it not to be able to get your team out playing somebody else?
Well, Mike, it's we started this year way ahead of what this program has ever started before in years past. We never played till actually spring break of the college, but now we've learned through experience and through seeing Big Ten teams and other teams play. You know, you got to play in February. You got to be ready to go, and you got to go south. You got to go where it's warm, or you got to go west. And we were fortunate to go west. We got invited out there, and it was a really nice thing. New Mexico State coach helped us along a little ways, you know, and that's some of the bigger schools can do that to some of the smaller schools. We were supposed to go to Evansville, and well, Evansville looked like Fort Wayne. It was snow on the ground, 2 inches or 3 inches snow on the field, so they canceled. We had some good schools coming in there, Boston University and Middle Tennessee and some other schools, so that got canceled. But so we practiced indoors. We got ready to go to Florida, and we only lost one game down there because of a thunderstorm. We went 5 innings, and we didn't get to finish the last 2 innings of a ball game, and then the second game got rained out. But other than that, we had great weather. Kids played very, very well in Florida. We came out of there 4-5. Could have come home 6-3, but coulda, woulda, shoulda, you know, all those type of things, but played very close games. I think all but one game we were basically in the competition with everyone. So you know, we're excited about that. We saw a lot of good things by a lot of our kids on the team.
And we played Providence 13 innings.
Yeah.
Yeah, doubleheader in one.
Yeah.
Right.
Then-
Yeah.
Let's, if we can, briefly, we'll talk about some of these games. And I got my cheat sheet here, but like you say, you were rained out against Maine.
Right.
You lost 2-0 to Quinnipiac. Pennsylvania, you won that one 7-5 in extra innings,
Right.
which is always good. Lehigh, 6-0 loss. the 13-inning game you say against Providence at 10-4, sometimes numbers are misleading. If you go 13 innings, that means at least 12 of them you're dead even.
Right.
Austin P, 5-4 loss. St. Joseph, PA, a 5-4 win. Tennessee Martin took it on the chin, 11-1.
Right.
But then you got Niagara, 8-0 shutout. And then you beat Pennsylvania, the Quakers, 6-5. And then you knocked off an intrastate rival, the Sycamores of Indiana State, 7-5. And then they came back and beat you 10-3. So, like you say, 4 up and 5 down. The fact that, being competitive, and but you almost, this program, when you guys took over, I don't want to say it was at rock bottom, but you couldn't go down any further, realistically.
Yeah, we had a lot of room for improvement. And the room for improvement is not Coach Smith and myself and Coach Skelton and Coach Long. Yes, we're here and we work with the kids, but it's the total effort of these young ladies, and that's where the credit has to be given.
And speaking of Coach Skelton, Doc, he's not here today.
Oh,
we got to get on him
I
for missing the boat.
That's right.
The Florida trip, how much more difficult is it for you guys as coaches, or maybe for the women to play, being away from home so much, as opposed to getting some ball games here?
Well, they look forward to these trips, especially when we go to warm weather. And they're really a fine group of young ladies, and we're proud to take them anywhere in the country because they represent our university in a very, very good way, and very respectful. But they're anxious to go and see different places in the country, and which that's what we've been able to do. So we're excited. We're excited. We will have some home games. We have probably 7 or 8 right in a row, right at the end, and. But I like to have them in April at home because hopefully our field will be ready and in shape.
Well, I want to get into, we'll probably do it at the end of this segment, and if we don't finish it, we'll talk about in the next segment. A big weekend last weekend. You traveled to West Lafayette, and you played 4 games in 2 days. You split 2-2. You lost to nationally ranked Michigan, and of course, being a native Detroiter, I'm fond of the University of Michigan, but sincerely, they've been in the College World Series 3 of the last 4 years. Made it to the final 8, and though you lost the game, I'm sure it was a heck of an experience. You lost to Michigan. You defeated Loyola 6-1.
Correct.
You defeated Butler, another intrastate rival, so you're 2-3 against intrastate rivals. You beat them 6-1, and then you lost to the host Boilermakers. So again, you lost. You're still more wins and losses against intrastate foes. But talk about the weekend, because I'm sure there were a lot of people there, high caliber programs that you played, and your team did real well.
Well, Mike, one parent came up and said, you ought to be just proud to step on the field against Michigan. And I said, well, I said that's true, but we don't look at it that way. We stepped on the field to win a ball game. Realistically, could we win the ball game? Probably not, and we did not. But we didn't play that game as well as we played a lot of our games when coming out of Florida. But they pitched, and no excuses. They pitched a 2-time All-American pitcher. She took them to the semifinals in the College World Series. Dynamic pitcher. But it's great for our kids to see those type of things. And then the second game, after we left there and we had an hour and a half in between, we go play Loyola, and we just get after their pitcher because it was altogether different type of pitching. They seen the ball a lot better. We jumped on them 4 runs the first inning. So, it's a great experience to play these teams, and we're going to continue to do that.
We're talking women's softball with head coach Keith Fisher and pitching coach Dennis Smith. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about some of the players. We talked about some of the results, but now we want to talk about some of the players who are making these games exciting for IPFW softball. We'll continue that discussion when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
I like to volunteer for the neighborhood emergency response team to help the firefighters. As you know, I was Fireman of the Year 3 times.
You're Mariano Rivera.
Thank you.
Fireman of the Year is a baseball award.
Yes.
You're not actually a fireman.
No.
Fireman of the Year, huh?
Just a few more minutes.
When you help your neighbors, you help your nation. Everyone can do something.
Visit us at usafreedomcorps.gov.
Can you pass the salt, Dad?
Salt is to pepper as gregarious is to...
Oh, no, not more SAT questions.
In ancient Rome, salt was a form of currency. True or false?
False?
True.
Son, can you locate sodium?
Or chloride?
There are tons of ways to help with your kids' learning. Find the really good ones on connectforkids.org.
You have 3.5 grams of salt and a 5-gram slug. What's the rate of shrivel?
All over America, people are taking the National Radon Test. Have you? Answer true or false. Radon is a radioactive gas.
False.
True.
It's true?
It's a natural gas?
The Office of the Surgeon General recommends all homes be tested for radon.
False.
False.
True. Radon is the second leading cause of lung cancer.
False.
It's true.
I'm totally surprised. I never would have thought that.
I don't even know where to go to have it checked.
1-800-SOS-RADON.
If I don't take care of it, nobody else will.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. We're discussing the IPFW women's softball team with head coach Keith Fisher and pitching coach Dennis Smith. And as we tape this segment, the team is 8-11. We just talked about the Florida trip. We were 4-5. We talked about a good weekend at Purdue. Won 2, lost 2. So the team is playing well right now. But we talked about some of the games and some of the scores. Let's talk about some of the players who are playing. And I guess the first thing I want to talk about, and I know on an earlier show, Keith, we talked about the fact that you start with pitching and defense. And I think in women's softball, and as you said, a 1-0 game really can be exciting. Now, some viewers may see this and they think, 1-0, what are you guys, nuts? But you've been around the game for many, many years. I've enjoyed watching it for several years. But a 1-0 game means that pitching is at a premium, defense is at a premium, and you're turning plays. Let's talk, Dennis, about the pitching staff that is on this year's team.
Well, we have Mindy Pomeroy, she's a junior. Mindy Mason, she's a sophomore. And Beth Harmon, she's kind of the new kid on the block, she's a freshman. And all of them contributed very well. I know coming out of high school, they're all used to pitching all innings all the time. And so they've kind of worked real well. We've only had a few complete games, really. But they've just done a super job complementing each other.
Talk a little bit. Each pitcher obviously does something a little bit different. And let's talk a little bit of pitching parlance right now. You've got obviously the fastball or the heater. In softball, there's what's called a riser.
Yeah.
The change of pace, whatever the terms. Talk about what each of those three brings to the table.
Mindy Pomeroy is basically probably a drop ball, spot fastball pitcher, and she'll mix in a changeup every once in a while. She has developed a curveball, which is coming along real nice, kind of curves away from right-handers and goes up a little bit. So she's improving every year. She kind of got off to a rocky start this year, but I think her confidence is starting to come back. I think it was kind of blown up with the competition now, and she just needs to believe in herself and just keep going. She had a great outing last time against Butler, and so I think it's really coming back. Most of the time she does pitch our tougher games, so don't go by the win-loss record. So,
is it the goal when you go into a game to have your pitcher go the whole 7 innings, or basically are you looking for 4 good innings and maybe rotate, or go have someone come out of the bullpen? Or
one game we'll have one start, and we'll have 3 pitchers. One for the day will be in the bullpen, and one will start one game. The next pitcher will start the other game, and then maybe the next day we'll let that one that was in the bullpen start a game, and then somebody else is in the bullpen. So that way it's definitely a team. They have to complement each other. It's all team goal oriented.
Let me ask our clarification. In women's softball, what's the word I'm looking for? Are you able, let's say as an example, you start Mindy Pomeroy in a game and she pitches 4 innings. Then you get a situation where you want to bring one of the other gals in to pitch to a couple of batters. Is it possible, or a re-entry rule? I guess that's what I'm looking for. Is it?
Yeah, we can
is
take
it
her
good?
out.
I mean,
Yeah, we
it's
can
okay
do we can do that, but we haven't really done that yet. Usually they go pretty much until they start getting hit, and you could kind of feel the tide turning, and we'll bring somebody else in.
You talk about the big games, and obviously a Michigan or a Purdue, or maybe a couple other games down in Florida. Big games because of the caliber of the opponent. What do you say to these gals when you know who's going to start? What kind of a game plan do you try to set up?
The game plan is basically the same every game. You better hit your spots and make the ball move up or down. You know, don't keep it on the same plane. Really don't throw the ball in the same place twice, and just keep moving around. Just do your best. You know, because you also have 8 defenders out there with you. So
let's move away from the pitching staff and let's talk about some of the other players. You've got some veterans and you've got some youngsters.
Just one thing to add to the pitching staff is they all want to start. Yeah, and that's the good thing. You know, it's not like you know, they want to take a back seat. You know, they want to be on that mound. They want us to hand the ball and say they're starting. So that's a good feeling. That's a good feeling. That's a good feeling for us as coaches. I'll tell you the rest of the team, and I just have to compliment the entire team. Down in Florida, we our last day on Friday, we played Pennsylvania. We got behind 5-1. We battled back 5-3, and bottom of the 7th inning, we come back and score 3 runs, and we win the ball game 6-5. That was with the effort of also the bench. We had Mandy Jaffe come off the bench, start out with a hit. Stephanie Roth hitting the ball. Kara Lee Johnson. You know, it's a total team effort. It's not just the starting 9 that won this ball game or won some of the ball games that we put the W behind us. It's a total team effort. So, you know, to point out one outstanding young lady, you know, I want to point out the entire team because you know, that's how we feel as coaches. Our first baseman, from Adrian, Michigan, freshman. Tremendous defensive player, was really struggling at the plate, and all of a sudden, boom, she started hitting, and then she gets her hand hurt. We thought she broke her hand up above her thumb. Well, we were lucky that didn't happen, but it's bruised real deeply. So she hasn't been batting, but we've been having somebody bat for her, but defensively she's been playing.
And her name is?
Heather DeVore.
Okay.
And then our second baseman, Tierney Green. Tierney, we turned her from the right-handed batter, which she's batted all her life, to a left-handed batter. And, you know, we had a sneaking suspicion that she couldn't see the ball from the right side, and we were right. You know, sometimes we get lucky. But she's really performed from the left side, bunting and slapping and getting on base and doing some things. And she's so excited now to bat. Before it was like, oh, it's my turn, you know, as a freshman. But now, you know, we found the niche, and that was great. Maggie Bruning's doing an excellent job at shortstop. What a hard player, a player that plays with a lot of injuries and never complains. Just a tremendous hitter, a great hitter. At third base, we have a freshman that never played third base in high school. She played maybe one game. We recruited her as a catcher. Well, we have a senior catcher. So we've really put a lot of pressure on her at third base, and she knows it, and we keep on her, and so we have to kind of keep pumping her up. But she's a tremendous hitter. She hit a couple home runs now that I know of. So, you know, there's another great young lady.
And her name?
Her name is
Sorry about
Jenna Beachy, excuse me.
Okay.
Jenna Beachy. Crystal Fisher behind the plate, senior catcher. Super gal, takes a lot of punishment, but really has turned herself around in hitting. I think we've kind of put her behind Maggie Bruning, and all of a sudden she sees boom, and then she's going to do the same thing. And in front of Maggie is Jenna Beachy, and you know, we got some power now. We got some hitters. I had teams come up and say, Coach, you know, even Purdue coach said, Coach, you got some girls who can really hit the ball. Well, we do. So, you know, we scrap it. We didn't play well against Purdue. We didn't play well against Michigan. I mean, We did not play the game that we're capable of playing. And I'm not making excuses whether we're retired or whatever. But Purdue's going to come here, and we're going to try to play a lot better when we play them a doubleheader. So outfield, Angela Grabcheck, Lori Farrote, Laura Randolph. Laura Randolph was just struggling hitting coming out of Florida, and now all of a sudden, bang, she sees the ball and she's starting to hit. So all our kids, it's a total team effort, and we're super proud of them. And we're gonna battle, and we're gonna see where we're at the end, Mike.
We're going to talk briefly about what's ahead, but I want to go back, if I can, for one quick moment. The very fact that, as you said earlier, Denny, 8 wins already at the Division I level. They're competitive, and I know that's something that you two and Doc and Jennifer were thinking about all along. If we get the gals that want to play, you're starting to turn some heads.
Right. Yeah. Well, we're just the girls are going out there and they want to win ball games, and they work hard, they scrap hard, and we don't put the pressure on them, but we say take it one game at a time, and that's what we're trying to do.
We kind of thought we were real close last year, playing them somewhat close, and we just thought with the new additions coming in, and now we're finding ourselves right there with everybody.
Well, let's look briefly ahead. As we're taping this segment, it's Tuesday, and this afternoon, weather permitting, you're going to take on the Crusaders of Valparaiso. You went to their place last year, and I believe you split a doubleheader.
Right.
Then, if I can get my eyes focused here, tomorrow, weather permitting, you go down to IUPUI for the Mid-Con. And then next week, Michigan State up in East Lansing on the 5th of April. And then you mentioned the Purdue doubleheader here, April the 8th, 2 o'clock, folks. Doubleheader against Purdue of the Big Ten. And the 9th, you go to Western Michigan. And then Saturday the 12th, you're home to Eastern Michigan. And we'll stop there for the moment. Some good games coming ahead. What do you hope to accomplish in this next 10 days or so?
Well, we hope to accomplish to win some ball games, Mike. Naturally we want to win, and we want to play the best of our abilities. That's the main thing. And as long as we play well, and I tell the girls, I said we can play any team in the country as long as we don't make a lot of errors. And when we start making those errors, that's when the runs start building up. And I tell them, look how many errors we made, look how many runs they scored. And it just comes down to that. We played Indiana State second game. We're ahead of them to start out with. Then all of a sudden, it just like we fell out of the sky or something happened, and we started making errors. Well, we get beat 10-3. It wasn't a 10-3 ball game. It wound up 10-3. And when we played Austin P, I believe was it Austin P or Tennessee Martin? I think it was Tennessee Martin. They beat us 11-1. Well, that score didn't indicate. We had 9 errors in that ball game, I believe. Several pass balls. We made a little changes in some things that we did, and that's after our first baseman got hurt. But we had 4 hits, and they had 4 hits. So tell me where the ball game. You got to defensively, you got to be sound. So we really work hard on that. We really work hard on bunting. I told the girls we got to be excellent bunters. We are not excellent bunters yet, Mike, and we're going to be excellent bunters before this season's over with. Plus bunt coverage. We got to be a little better because teams can tell as soon as you don't cover that bunt, they can bunt you to death. So we're working real hard on some things. We never stop working.
We're out of time, unfortunately, but we're going to create some time because a segment with you is not complete without a story. Got a quick story you can give us?
Well, trying to think.
That's
Coach Ball and I, we like to go out and play golf. And it's just, I'm just so amazed that he always asked me for strokes. He said, Coach, you went south and you went west, and I know you played golf and all this thing. So, Coach Ball, I just want to tell you right now, you're never going to get any strokes from me. So that's my story now, but I'll think of something the next time.
Always a pleasure to have you on. Congratulations on the good start. We wish you success down the road, and we'll talk to you again in a few weeks.
Thanks, Mike.
We've been visiting with head softball coach Keith Fisher, pitching coach Dennis Smith, IPFW women's softball team. We'll take a break and come back with more of Mastodon Spotlight in just a moment, right here on College 56 Sports.
Hi, I'm Cindy Thompson for RAD, recording artists, actors, and athletes against drunk driving. Real life is not always a song, and in less time than it takes to play the latest country hit, someone will be injured or killed in an alcohol-related crash. So next time you're out with someone who's been drinking, don't let them take the wheel. Take the keys instead. Friends, don't let friends drive drunk.
This party isn't all that it's cracked up to be.
It's the most magnificent sight in the universe. This planet full of life and wonder. This planet we call home. As an Earth Team volunteer, you can help the Natural Resources Conservation Service care for it, right in your own community. Call 1-888-LAND-CARE to find out how, because there's just no place like home.
Excuse me, I can't seem to find these anywhere.
These books are no longer available.
I didn't know.
May I have your name, please?
Why?
Excuse me.
What did I do?
We just have a couple of questions.
Easy, easy.
A Stargate. That's the door to other worlds that my character Tilk and the rest of my team use on Stargate SG-1. It's a door to exploration and exciting adventure. And education can provide you with a similar passageway to a world full of possibilities. So stay in school and graduate.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. Some wise old sage once said, when in doubt, go to the bullpen, and that's what we've done here for our final segment of this week's program. We had someone else scheduled to appear, and he couldn't make it, so we've gone to the bullpen, and in this case, out of the bullpen comes Sports Information Director Mike Jewell. Thanks for bailing me out.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Don't dare say what we were chuckling about before we started taping, but the first thing I want to talk about is basketball at IPFW is finally over, and though it was fun to some degree, with a lot more success this year than last, you as the one and only sports information director here at the university, having to cover 16 sports, I'm sure you're a little happy that the hectic pace of basketball has finally been put to rest for a while.
Yeah, it's definitely a nice pace now. It's slowing up to a point where you don't know what to do. And I mean, I know that's a bad part. After being constantly going for basketball, because at any given night they were playing like almost every other night, it seemed like, from all the game notes and all the stuff we were working on. But now that it's slowing up, and then you have baseball, which in court, softball are actually playing every day now because of all the rainouts. But having basketball over, it is a lot of burden off your shoulders, because it is a lot of work. A lot of people don't understand that there's a lot of stuff that goes on with putting on a basketball game, and sometimes it gets to the point where you're at a burnout pace. And I was probably at that burnout pace probably around January, but I kept pushing and pushing through it, and eventually once you get through it, it's a nice calm relief, and then you start up on your other sports, which actually cross over with basketball.
For educational purposes, something that we don't do on this program, but we're gonna try something new. But for the viewer that might be interested, your job is a difficult one at best. But tell the viewers exactly your job in general, but for basketball in particular, some of the things that you've had to do.
Well, a lot of the things that we do for basketball, well, of course, we've got to do basketball game notes. Opposing radios plus our home radio like to have those game notes to know what's going on, what's happening, plus our media that cover the game, the Journal-Gazette, News Sentinel, and the 3 TV stations, 33, 21, and 15. They need that
And
type of
us.
information. Yeah, and you guys. But you guys are always there, so it makes my life easy. But you got to have that stuff ready for them, because if they come in completely blind, you're not going to have any idea of what to do, what to say, what has been going on in the past couple games, unless you're doing a lot of research. And in some cases, we could just sit back and say, yeah, well, let's see if these guys can do a lot of research. But it's probably better that I actually give all the information out, because it makes, I've had a lot of people say it makes their jobs easier on writing a story, because most newspapers, they can get there, they go through everything, they're in and out, and then they can go on with their life. Now they get to do that while I've still got to go back and do all the faxing and then writing my game story.
We've been together many a night, late in the night, trying to get some stuff put together. I'd be remiss if we didn't make the comment of the fact that even though IPFW's season is over, 8 of the men's opponents qualified for postseason play into either the NCAA or the NIT. And we had Bruce Patterson on recently finishing off the women's basketball program. And I believe he said there were 6 teams that he played this year that qualified for tournament play. So it's in a way, it's kind of neat. People that we played are still playing. Your thoughts on the men's tournament? Because in my pool, I picked Butler to win the first 2 games. They're still alive in the round of 16.
Yeah, in the men's tournament, it was real nice to see basically 4 of the teams that we did play make the NCAA tournament. IUPUI, of course, because we did beat them at home in overtime. But it was also nice to email their sports information directors. I did that with IUPUI right after they won, congratulating them, and they responded that same night, thanking me for that, and I wished them the best, because I knew how much work they had to get done before going into that NCAA tournament. And those guys were running around in circles looking for articles that they needed for their stuff for the NCAA tournament. But I wish them the best, and Jim McGrath also at Butler, Butler is still going, and I think Butler will continue to go.
You think they can beat Oklahoma?
Honestly, I think they have a good shot. If they play their game, they will. And that's really all it comes down to is who can play the best basketball that night. I mean, it's no more based on records or based on somebody had 24 points or another person had 10 steals. You could have somebody come off the bench now and score 30 points and never heard of them before and be the guy that guides you to the next round. I mean, you just don't know what's going to happen.
Typical example was the freshman Buckley from Purdue. Yep. 20 points in their first round win over LSU.
And nobody expected that at all, especially I'm sure LSU didn't after watching that game, because they looked more stunned than any team that I've seen during this tournament.
Before we move on, your thought, who's going to win it all?
You know what? I really don't know. I mean, my thought was maybe Xavier or one of the mid-major teams going all the way. And I still think that could be the case. One of either mid-major teams, or what they call mid-majors. I wouldn't even call them mid-majors. One of those teams is going to sneak up and possibly sneak into that Final Four. Now, playing against Kentucky, I mean, we saw what Kentucky did at IUPUI. And right now, I wouldn't want to play against Kentucky at all. So, but I guess I just don't have a team. I just want to see who's going to go out there and who's going to upset who.
Let's change gears for a minute. Earlier in our program, when I did the review of what happened last week, we commented on the tremendous performance by Jeff Patak. And I know that on this week's Arnie Ball show, Jeff is Arnie's guest, special guest, and kudos to Jeff. You were kind enough to supply me, and I know you can't see this on the camera sometimes, folks, but Mike does. He supplies us with all kinds of information, and you gave me information. Jeff was named not only the MIVA Player of the Week, but the National Player of the Week. In a small way, you had something to do with that. Let's talk about your small involvement. Jeff had a great week, 43 kills against Loyola, and then in only 2 of 3 sets against Clark, because he didn't play the third, 10 kills for the week. But, gosh, hitting, 692 against Clark, which is unheard of. And for the two matches altogether, almost 620 hitting percentage, which is unheard of. But you as an SID, you have to help get Jeff that honor through part of your job. Tell us a little bit about what you had to do.
Yeah, actually, I've got the easy part. Jeff's got the hard part. He's got to go out there and swing away and jump till he's basically out of the gym. The nice part was he set up a good base with that Loyola being the first game, having 43 kills, 5 hitting errors only out of 63 attempts. Right there, I knew he had set a good base. The only concern that I had coming into work the next day was, please, Jeff, don't start hitting the ball all over the gym. Just try to keep it consistent and just get about 10, 15 kills and only maybe have 2 or 3 hitting errors. And then right when I got that, right when I had the information from Clark College, the nice thing is I already had most of the information written up for him for Player of the Week and National Player of the Week ready to go, just waiting for that Clark College and hoping there wasn't going to be any little glitch that occurred. And Jeff had another fine game, and that just made my life completely easy, because as of Saturday, by about 6 o'clock, I had all my stuff turned into the AVCA, turned into the MIVA. At that time, to me, it was a no-brainer. Jeff deserved both honors, hands down. Nobody had over 40 kills this year, especially nationally, let alone in our conference. So seeing that, I figured MIVA, okay, we haven't had anybody that's really just jumped out and stunned us, but this time Jeff did, and I figured, okay, he's going to get MIVA. What is my chances of slipping him by and get him into the national? When I started looking and doing a little research on how many people had what kills and so much, I thought, this is a no-brainer. I've just got to send it. And I did everything possibly, turned everything in on time, and made sure all the I's were dotted, T's were crossed, and we were all set to go. And I mean, the only thing that they could come back and say is, well, Mike, you must have forgot this. Then it would have been my fault, because it definitely wasn't Jeff's fault, because Jeff went out and just played his heart out.
And again, for the benefit of our viewers, what you have to do is you have to supply the media with the numbers. Jeff had the 43 kills Friday night, so you've got to let the media outlets, and in this case, you know, people in the MIVA office and the AVCA, glad you said it, office, know about this, but that's part of your job.
Yeah.
Don't have too much time left, and I know you're happy about that. You're into the spring season now. We've got, as we're taping this, approximately, depending upon the sport, anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks left of competition, or close to it. April, part of May. We still got a little bit of March, a few days left in March. What are you going to be doing these next several weeks?
I don't know. Actually, realizing that we only have 6 to 7 weeks left, I'm thinking, vacation. I got to start thinking ahead on that. I've actually haven't even thought it that way. I just go day by day because, of course, with baseball and softball, with the rainouts that you have, you've got to adjust your schedule, because one day you might get rained out and you might have to play it at another venue. You might have to play it at home, or they might have to go on the road. I mean, those schedules change constantly due to weather situations, and right now I actually haven't looked further to see what I'm doing. I know I'm taking some vacation off, and I know I was going to help my mom around her house and then take some time off and do my little hobby of what I do at home. But other than that, it's going to be nice being home and hanging out with a wife.
John's asking what hobby is that at home?
Well, I sort of take after my grandfather. I like to do a lot of woodworking. So just different types of woodworking projects that I do. One thing that I would like to do, and it's because my grandfather did it, he made a cradle when we were little for us when we were born, and we gave that to my mom. And I've always thought, you know what, that would be nice for me to do when I start to decide to have a family. And I think that's probably where the wife is right now, Ed. You've been away for so long, but now it's time to start having the family. So.
Interesting summer, that's for sure. And not to mention another little hobby, not to mention another little hobby that you and I are going to do across the street at Memorial Stadium this summer, helping out the Wizards.
Yeah, helping out with the Wizards, that will be a great time. And the nice thing is, well, you'll be taking half the games, so I won't be doing all 70 games anymore. So that's going to give me a little break, but it also gets me out of the house, gets me to enjoy baseball, get to hang out with everybody. It's just a real fun time. And then I know I've got a couple other things that I've got planned this summer, going up to Michigan International Speedway and NASCAR races up there. And occasionally I might do a little freelance work wherever I can. But for the most part, I just want to enjoy and relax this summer.
And again, and it's the final thought we'll end it on here. The job of a sports information director, as you well know, because you've been involved here at the university for 4 years, but in the profession for 10, it's not easy. It's almost a 24/7, and if you don't get a little break, you'll head to the insane asylum.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, most of the people in our field, they say the burnout rate is 4 years. If you can make it past 4 years and keep going, you're in good shape. But you got to remember, a lot of these other schools, they don't just have one person. They got one person that covers their football, and then they break it down between a bunch of others. So their burnout rate's not as high as the smaller schools. And it does take a special person, I think, to actually sit there and do all the sports and enjoy it. I mean, you got teams that are all over. I mean, I don't even know how many athletes' names I've seen this year based on rosters alone. I mean, you think about basketball, there's roughly 15 to a roster. You have 30 games. That's quite a few people. And then once you start getting to baseball, it's like 25 a roster, and you got like 50 games. So you're seeing tons of names that you got to key in, and eventually it's just like, man, this is how many athletes' names I've seen all year. It's like, wow, this is unbelievable.
Well, it's an unpaid political plug, but I do hope, and I said this last year, and I'll say it again this year, you work extremely hard. I would hope that at some point soon you will get some help so that you are not a casualty of burnout, because you do a heck of a job here with all the athletic teams.
I don't think I'll be a burnout. I mean, having Mindy and Brian around, I know I'm not a burnout. So having those guys alleviate a lot of pain, it's been good. And next year I know that for Mindy Mills, my grad assistant, she'll be getting a couple of sports that she'll be able to take under her wing completely without me watching her, and just let her run with them, because she knows what she's doing and she'll do a great job. And I got a lot of confidence in her. Thanks for bailing me out. Oh, no problem.
Interesting segment. Enjoy the rest of the spring.
Yeah, I'll try to.
And we will see a lot of each other, that's for sure.
Oh, yes.
Mike Jewell has been our guest sports information director here at IPFW. We thank Mike. We also thank the Lone Ranger in Tonto, otherwise known as Keith Fisher, and Dennis Smith from IPFW Women's Softball for appearing this week. And again, congratulations to Jeff Patak from the volleyball team for being named MIVA and National Player of the Week for his performance last weekend. That's it for this week's show. Again, real quickly, upcoming events this weekend. Volleyball team again on the road. Friday night at Lewis, time to knock Lewis from the ranks of the undefeated in conference play if all goes well. Saturday night at Quincy. And again, you can find out more about IPFW volleyball by tuning into the Arnie Ball Show here on College 56 this weekend, so be sure to watch that. Let's see, else real quickly, the tennis team, men's tennis team is at Western Michigan Friday, and Dayton on Sunday. Women's tennis team is also going to be at Dayton on Sunday. Baseball team, if all goes well and Mother Nature cooperates, they're going to be this weekend at Eastern Illinois, and Saturday and Sunday, so we wish them well. Track and field is getting ready for their outdoor season. We hope to have Rick Norton on in the future for that, and I'm sure I'm missing a couple, but I apologize. Whatever we do miss, we'll try to tell you about it next week when we come back, but that's next week on Mastodon Spotlight. Again, thanks for tuning in this week. See you next week. Until next week, Mike Ma saying have a great week, and go Dons. Another busy week on the athletic front last week here at IPFW. This week on Mastodon Spotlight, we'll take a look back and see what happened on the baseball field, the softball diamond, track and field, tennis courts, and the volleyball court. And we'll also have some special guests later on to talk about broadcasting. Again, our show is called Mastodon Spotlight, and it's coming up next.
They came from every corner of the country. From small towns and big cities. But they all shared one thing in common. They belonged to a family called Marines. A tough and determined few, dedicated to protecting everything we hold sacred. And still they come. Celebrate the 225-year history of those proud few who have earned the title Marine.
Hi again, everybody. I'm Mike Maas. Welcome to another edition of Mastodon Spotlight. Well, Mother Nature is finally cooperating. We're getting some better weather, and that means our athletic teams, especially the baseball team, the softball team, track and field, tennis, they're able to compete. And they did last week. Let's take a look at what happened, beginning with men's volleyball. The men took to the road last week after winning 2 big matches on the road the week before at Loyola of Chicago and Clark College. This time they tackled the big boys, the Flyers of Lewis University, 5th ranked in the country, unbeaten in MIVA play. And unfortunately, it was a bad night Friday night for the Mastodons as they lost in straight sets to Lewis by scores of 30-16, 30-21, and 30-27. Mistakes and errors were the tone of the match for IPFW. They had 14 attack errors in game number 1, hit a minus .222 hitting attack percentage, and fell behind 5-0, just could not catch up. They lost that one 30-16. They cut down on the errors in game 2, only had 6 errors, lost 30-21. And in game number 3, Coach Arnie Ball cleared the bench, took his starters out, played a whole new unit, and they played much better, but fell on the short side of a 30-27 score. For the night, Matt Zibaszewski, 7 kills. Mitch Dreisbach in game number 3, 5 kills. Mike Dyga, the freshman, had 6 kills. Jeff Patak, who a week prior was National and MIVA Player of the Week. Jeff had a bad night, only 4 kills. Dennis Santiago had 18 assists in the first 2 games. Senior Ryan Staley came off the bench in game 3 and had 11 assists from the setter's position. Just a tough match for the Dons, and they lose in 3. Then they traveled up the road to Quincy, Illinois, and took on Quincy on Saturday night. Things got better. They did lose the first game 30-28, but they came back to win the match, winning game 2 30-25, game 3 30-28, and game 4 30-22. Jeff Patak had a much better night. The senior from Hamburg, New York, had 26 kills to lead the IPFW attack. Matt Zibaszewski had 22 kills. Angel Ruiz, another senior, had 8 kills. And Dennis Santiago had 55 assists from the setter position. So a better result Saturday night as the Dons beat Quincy. They now stand in 5th place in the MIVA standings. They are 7-6 in conference play, 10-8 overall. Real quickly, Lewis is on top in the conference race, 13-0. Loyola, 11-3. Ohio State, 9-3. Ball State, who will be here Saturday night, we'll talk more about that later, 9-4. Then comes IPFW, followed by Quincy, Findlay, Mercyhurst, and Clark in the MIVA standings. That's volleyball. Let's turn to baseball now. A lot of action last week for Coach Billy Gernon's squad. Last Tuesday, they had a game scheduled down in Muncie against Ball State, but that was rained out. Wednesday, the weather was better. They went down to Indianapolis, took on the Butler Bulldogs, split a doubleheader. They won the first game 8-4 behind the pitching of Jason Horvath. Don's got 3 runs in the 4th, 3 runs in the 6th. Jason Abramson had a home run in the 7th. And Jason Horvath went 6 2/3 innings, gave up 4 runs on 8 hits, walked 4, and struck out 11 as he raised his individual record to 3 wins against only 1 loss. Dons won that one 8-4. They lost the nightcap 5-3. Then they will travel to Eastern Illinois over the weekend and played back-to-back doubleheaders against Eastern Illinois. Saturday, not a good day. They lost the opener 9-2. David Zachary couldn't get out of the box in the first inning. suffered a loss as Eastern Illinois scored twice in the first, once in the second, 4 times in the fourth, and twice in the seventh inning. Game 2 was even more horrendous for the baseball team as they took a 21-6 pounding. Eastern Illinois scored 6 times in the first inning, once in the second, twice in the third, 7 runs in the fourth, and 5 runs in the fifth. They had 21 runs on 20 base hits, and again, 21-6 pasting there. Sunday, a little bit better. The Dons lost the first game 5-4 as Eastern Illinois scored a run in the bottom of the 7th to snap a tie. And in Game 2, the final game of the series, IPFW came out on top, winning 9-7. They scored 5 times in the second inning, 3 times in the third, and once in the fourth. Eric Lambert evened his record up at 1-1. And Lambert, Billy Banks, and Zach Walton had 2 hits apiece to spearhead the IPFW attack. Mastodons now 7-11-1 in the season. Let's go to softball. Last Tuesday, a doubleheader here at home against the Crusaders of Valparaiso. First game, things looked well. IPFW had a 3-1 lead going into the top of the 7th, but the first 2 batters reached base on errors for Valpo starting off the 7th inning, and before you know it, Crusaders scored 4 times and literally stole a 5-3 victory away from IPFW. One bright spot, Laura Randolph had 2 hits and 2 RBIs. In fact, her 2 RBIs had given IPFW a 3-1 lead. Nightcap, things looked a little better as freshman Beth Harmon pitched well. IPFW trailed in the second game 2-0 rather, entering the bottom of the 4th. But in that 4th inning, they scored 7 runs on only 4 hits, but took advantage of 5 Valparaiso errors and took the lead, were never headed. They won Game 2 11-3. Beth Harmon went the distance, gave up 3 runs on 6 hits, and improved her record to 6-2. The next day, women's team also traveled down to Indianapolis, took on IUPUI from the Mid-Con, and they split the doubleheader. They lost the first game 5-4, and IUPUI scored twice in the second, twice in the third, once in the fifth. IPFW scored once in the fourth, 3 in the fifth, not enough. Mindy Pomeroy, 4 hits and 4 at-bats and a losing call. She also had 2 RBIs. Game 2, IPFW comes back to win 4-3, scoring 3 times in the first, once in the second. Tierney Green and Jenna Beachy had 2 hits apiece. Maggie Bruning knocked in a couple of runs, and Beth Harmon came right back and scattered 10 hits. And she raised her record to 7-2 overall. Again, the Dons split a doubleheader against IUPUI. They are now 10-13 on the season. Let's shift to tennis real quickly. The men's team had 2 matches over the weekend. On Friday, they lost to Western Michigan 7-0. And on Sunday, they went down to Dayton, and the Flyers beat them 6-1. Daniel Jackson at number 6 singles, getting the only IPFW match victory. And then on Sunday also, the women played Dayton and fell on the short end of a 7-0 score there. And then finally, track and field got underway. The outdoor season had a meet over in West Lafayette down at Purdue University. And in spite of cold weather, it was only 36 degrees outside. A number of school records were set by IPFW. John Grenier in the hammer, Nate Kerr in the 400 meters, and the 4x100 relay team, which consisted of Josh Simons, Lee Brindo, Nate Kerr, and Andy Body. They all set school records on the men's side. And on the women's side, 7 school records were set. Carmen Guerin, I hope I pronounced that correctly, in the triple jump. Lauren Simpson in the 3,000-meter steeplechase and the 5,000-meter run. Brianne Guilford in the long jump. Leslie Bush in the 100-meter dash. And the 4x100 relay team, which consisted of Leslie Bush, Madeline Martinez, Brianne Guilford, and Kelly Dillon. All school records. Congratulate Coach Rick Norton and his squad on that effort. That's what happened last week. Time for a break. When we come back, I've got 3 distinguished gentlemen going to come on board, all members of the broadcasting fraternity, and we're going to talk about what it's like to broadcast collegiate athletics. But that interview will take place when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
Hi, I'm Joe Perry.
And Steven Tyler from Aerosmith.
here for RAD, recording artists, actors, and athletes against drunk driving. Never, never, never let someone you know get behind the wheel if they've been drinking. Friends don't let friends drive drunk.
I'd like to volunteer for the Neighborhood Emergency Response Team to help the firefighters. As you know, I was Fireman of the Year 3 times.
You're Mariano Rivera.
Thank you.
Fireman of the Year is a baseball award.
Yes.
You're not actually a fireman.
No.
Fireman of the Year, huh?
Just a few more minutes.
When you help your neighbors, you help your nation. Everyone can do something.
Visit us at usafreedomcorps.gov.
Can you pass the salt, Dad?
Salt is to pepper as gregarious is to...
Oh, no, not more SAT questions.
In ancient Rome, salt was a form of currency. True or false?
False?
True.
Son, can you locate sodium?
Or chloride?
There are tons of ways to help with your kids' learning. Find the really good ones on connectforkids.org.
You have 3.5 grams of salt and a 5-gram slug. What's the rate of shrivel?
All over America, people are taking the national radon test. Have you? Answer true or false. Radon is a radioactive gas.
False.
True.
It's true?
It's a natural gas?
The Office of the Surgeon General recommends all homes be tested for radon.
False.
False.
True. Radon is the second leading cause of lung cancer.
False.
It's true.
That's always a surprise. I never would have thought that.
I don't even know where to go to have it checked.
1-800-SOS Radon.
If I don't take care of it, nobody else will.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. Time now for a program that I always enjoy when we bring out the roundtable here at Mastodon Spotlight. And this week, we're going to talk about the area of broadcasting. And I've been able to entice 3 gentlemen to come on board with me. A couple of faces you know. There's a new face involved, and we'll get to meet him shortly. To my immediate right, Ryan Perrott, my former sidekick for 3 years here at Channel 56 with women's basketball, men's volleyball, women's volleyball, and he decided to deep six us and go work for Arnie Ball. And he's Arnie's right-hand man with the men's volleyball team. To Ryan's right is the new person that we want to talk about today, Terry Byram, who is the new voice of the Fort Wayne Wizards on radio, and they'll get started later this week. But he's also worked for Wabash College doing football, basketball.
Yeah, and a little baseball.
And a little baseball.
Yeah.
And we welcome Terry. We're going to meet more about, find out more about Terry shortly. And to Terry's right, a face that's familiar to a lot of you, one Kent Horman, who has been in this town forever and a day, works at Channel 33, started out at Channel 55, and as you well know, if you've been watching Channel 56 Sports this year, did a couple of volleyball matches in a little simulcast with Channel 56 and Channel 33, and I appreciate all 3 of you coming over for this little talk. Broadcasting. I guess the first, let me backtrack for a little bit, because I told Terry yesterday what I always try to do since you're the new kid on the block. I'd like you to tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Well, I decided to do this about 4 years ago. In my mid-30s, I always wanted to get into broadcasting. Moved to Crawfordsville from Northern California. Had a chance to do some high school sports. Then we picked up Wabash College, and last year I decided, with my wife's blessing, to pursue professional baseball. Worked out in Ogden last summer doing rookie league games for the Ogden Raptors, and got hired by the Wizards earlier this year, actually in November. Married for 13 years later this month. No kids. 3 animals. 2 old cats and we claim there are 2 old cranky cats and a 3-legged dog. That's what we have.
The 3-legged dog?
A 3-legged dog, that is the truth. 3-legged dog, yeah.
Let me move over to Kent, because Terry got into this just a few years ago. You've been in this forever, because you have done work with Channel 33, work with Channel 55. You are the color analyst for Fort Wayne Wizards baseball for, I think this is going on season number 9.
That's correct.
And you've also done a lot of high school basketball with Hilliard Gates. And you've also stepped in on a rare occasion, both on a radio side for Bob Chase with the Comets when Bob had his medical situation. And I know in the past, and I'm thinking back to glory years of '93 with the Turner Cup victory.
That's right.
Did some TV as well, and you've done some games with the Wizards on TV. I know you and I talked about 2 years ago about this, but for the benefit of our viewers, you've been in this business for umpteen years. What got you into the broadcasting business?
To be honest with you, Mike, I just tripped and fell. I received my degree from Ball State University in political science, my master's in public administration. I came home looking for a job. They were just putting the roof on Channel 55, and I walked out to Channel 55 to give them a resume to see if I could find a broom to push. And the next thing I know, they interviewed me, and the next thing I knew, they said, "How would you like to learn television?" And as they say after that, I guess the rest is kind of history. I learned all the behind-the-scenes stuff. On camera was the last part. But I was the poor soul trapped in there during the Great Blizzard of '78.
That's what I wanted to say. There was an instance, because I wasn't living in Fort Wayne at the time, but stuck in a blizzard forever and a day. You met new friends or new enemies. I'm not sure which.
Well, we made a lot of new friends during that blizzard because you have to go back to '78 and talk about a trip through a time machine. VCRs were just being invented. There were no satellites in town, there was no cable, and there was no 24-hour television. Basically, everybody signed off and went to bed after Johnny Carson. And we're on the air a whopping month, and the next thing I know, I'm going to work on a Wednesday in jeans and a sweatshirt to do behind-the-scenes work, and it started to snow a little bit. Next thing I know, the boss comes in and says our regular news guy was flat on his back with the flu, so they had to strip one of our account executives and give me his coat and tie and jacket, and we were just doing little 5-minute updates at that time, 5 minutes before every hour. And he came in and he said about 10 o'clock, "What kind of stamina do you have?" I'm 24 years old, bring on the next dragon. I thought he was worried about double shifting, as they say. We thought we'd stay on the air around the clock because we think we have a situation. And that situation, of course, was about 6-8 feet of snow. And we were in there from 8 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday until they airlifted us out by helicopter at 5 o'clock on Saturday. And that really gave the television station its identity. From there is where Night Owl Theater and the first plunge into 24-hour local television was born. It was a great experience.
It's amazing.
Yep.
Ryan, we haven't really talked about why you got into this rat race, but outside of putting up with me for 3 years, what got you involved?
Well, ever since I was a kid. Growing up in Canada, the epicenter is the CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, and Hockey Night in Canada, which is probably as religious as the sport of hockey itself. And I used to watch that every Saturday night and throughout the hockey playoffs in May and April. And when I was a kid, I really wanted to get into broadcasting. I loved the environment, to be around athletes, being an athlete myself growing up, and just to describe the action going on, to touch so many viewers, I think is just a great thing to be around. And then when I got into high school, I kind of sidetracked a little bit because I was so concerned with academics, and we didn't have that program, so I got into the business aspect and accounting and kind of went away from the broadcasting. But when I got here, obviously I had the blessing to be called by Channel 56 to come in and do some men's volleyball matches with yourself.
You bailed me out on more than one occasion, that's for sure.
And then it grew from there, and I minored in communications broadcasting. And then, of course, I had the great pleasure of interning with NBC 33 with Kent Horman and Steve Rappaport and the great people over at NBC 33. And it was one of the greatest experiences I've ever had. I went back home, did some stuff with local television, and now I have the itch for it. It's so fascinating. It's perhaps maybe unappreciative in some aspects, but I just think it's unbelievable, especially to do something that you love and to be a part of an environment that you've always grown up in. It's just fascinating.
Let's get into a little bit. The public, they see us in front of the camera. They see you every weekend, and of course, Terry, they've heard you on the radio, and Ryan, they've seen you and me and turned the set off on my side at least. But it's not as easy doing a broadcast as some people may think. Let's talk a little bit about the preparation, because, and we've talked about this in the past, Kent, preparation is essential if you want to be in this business.
Oh, sure. And especially if you want to come across with any degree of professionalism or credibility. And that's really all we have. We hope people watch us for whatever reason, watch us or listen to us because they want to hear what we have to say. They believe that we know what we're talking about, and hopefully we do. And if I've spoken to classes, school kids, anybody, I say, we have an interesting profession. Anybody can do it. Really, they can. But not everybody can do it. Because there is so much preparation and time management and everything else that goes into it. When they're listening to the broadcast of a Wizards baseball game or watching one of my 4 or 5 minute sportscasts, that is the so-called tip of the iceberg. They don't realize that oftentimes there is 8-10 hours or so of preparation and work and composition that goes into that little presentation.
Terry, you've been in this, you say, for 4 years. When you first started out, was there any trepidation or fear?
No, not at all. The first, I made a phone call to the local radio station. There was an ad on the radio. We need sports people for next fall. So I called the radio station, and it was in early June. And they said, the guy that I talked to was a sports director. We're going to do sectional baseball Thursday, come on out. I said, okay. And I thought we were just going to interview. I'd sit and watch. And I got there, and there was a headset, and he said, sit down, put it on. And that was, I'm completely okay with that. And, a lot of doing the stuff on the radio, and Kent probably feels the same way, you're not talking to anybody. There's nobody in front of you. And so for me, one of the guys that I grew up listening to, he always said he was trying to talk to one person in the living room, make that one person enjoy the broadcast. And so for me personally, that's what I try to do. Talking about preparation, I would say easily doing college football, even Division III, which is what I did. It's 8 or 10 hours a week. And then it's getting over to the college on home games, I would say by 8 or 8:30 in the morning for a 1 o'clock kickoff. And just getting everything ready, all my notes in the right place. And there is a lot of work that goes into it. Not so much for baseball, at least I don't, just really going over things, but it's such an everyday thing that you just really get into the rhythm of doing the games.
I know, Ryan, with you and I doing volleyball the past few years, and Kent, when you've done some hockey, name pronunciations can be interesting to say the least. Let's talk about that a little bit. You don't want to embarrass yourself on the air. You don't want to embarrass the player that you're trying to get. I'll give a classic example. When Matt Zibishevsky came here to play volleyball. And I remember I asked you, because you were involved at the time, not only broadcasting, but you were working out with the team and helping Arnie and that. How do you pronounce it? Right. And we went with Bashevsky. It wasn't until this year that put the Z in front of it.
Yes, this is Bashevsky.
And that's just one example, but there are several. We're almost done with this segment, but in the next segment, what I want to talk about is the relationship between yourself and the players, and yourself and team management. And again, what we're trying to do is to show people that broadcasting can be fun, but it's not easy.
There's a lot of hard work involved in broadcasting, and as they were mentioning with preparation, and name pronunciations is obviously a perfect example. The great thing that I've learned in the last year about broadcasting is to be polished in every aspect, and whether it's name pronunciations or filling up. I think one of the difficult things to do for baseball is filling up the airspace, the airtime.
Yeah.
I think that's very difficult in baseball. I've never done a baseball match, but I can tell that is one of the most difficult aspects to do a baseball telecast, is because of the airspace that you have to fill. And if you take a look at the great broadcasters that we have in society, Bob Costas here in the United States, Ron McLean up in Canada, these guys are polished around the clock, and they know so much information about all the sports, because you don't just limit yourself to whether it's baseball or hockey or volleyball in our situation. You have to expand your horizons and know a lot about other things, and that's about being polished.
And I'll tell you, Mike, hard work and confidence can compensate for certain shortcomings. I'll give you one quick story. I did the PA for the women's national volleyball match a number of years ago between the U.S. and Japan. And I said, I'll have no idea of how to pronounce these Japanese names. Our local paper had an Asian photographer who was going to be assigned to that match, and she was going to help me out as best as possible. She said, there's no way you'll be able to say them all properly, just say them quickly and confidently. So basically what I did throughout the match, Soto, Hiro, Sakamoto, did that throughout the entire match. And if you look between points, the Japanese national team, the women were looking over and howling, just this guy, who is it? So at the end of the match, we got through it. It was great fun. I'm walking off the court, and this fan's coming down from the stands, and she grabs me by the arm. She says, "I didn't know you spoke Japanese." Yeah, I studied at Oxford. So even if you don't get it right, act like you are or do the best you can, and sometimes it works.
We are having a delightful conversation in regards to broadcasting. We're talking with Ryan Perrott, Terry Byram, and Kent Horman. We'll take a break, collect our thoughts and our wits, and then we'll continue this discussion when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
Hi, I'd like to volunteer for something in legal aid. I was an assistant district attorney in New York City. I successfully prosecuted everything from extortion to murder.
That was a TV show. You weren't really an assistant district attorney.
I guess this isn't really a badge.
That's a Screen Actors Guild card.
I can spell habeas corpus. H-A-B.
When you help your neighbors, you help your nation. Everyone can do something.
Visit us at usafreedomcorps.gov.
May he bless you and keep you. May he grant you peace. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all for coming. I'll see you all next week, and please be careful going home.
This is me, and my mom and dad, and my big brother Alex, and Jack. This is the day I learned that sandals got their name from sand, and that the ocean is bigger than all of us. This is the day we all got to forget I was sick. This was my wish.
Hi, I'm Cindy Thompson for RAD, recording artists, actors, and athletes against drunk driving. Real life is not always a song, and in less time than it takes to play the latest country hit, someone will be injured or killed in an alcohol-related crash. So next time you're out with someone who's been drinking, don't let them take the wheel. Take the keys instead. Friends, don't let friends drive drunk.
This party isn't all that it's cracked up to be.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. A little bit different program this week. We're talking broadcasting. We're having a good old time. Our panel this week, Ryan Perrott to my immediate right, my former sidekick, who is now the assistant men's volleyball coach here at IPFW. To Ryan's right, Terry Byram, the brand new announcer for the Fort Wayne Wizards. And to Terry's right, Kent Horman, who is, you ought to go on a comedy circuit, I think, Kent. I'm not sure. But Kent's with Channel 33. He's done some matches with IPFW in the past, and he just told us about his exquisite pronunciation of Japanese. Gosh, it just floored me there. We talk about preparation for a broadcast. One area that I wanted to discuss, and I'm glad that you came over to talk about it, is where do you draw the line between rooting for your local team that you are representing and being an objective announcer?
Well, I don't think you can be objective, to be honest with you, especially for us on the radio. The whole thing where a person doing a ball game on the radio, whether it be minor league baseball or college, and you're supposed to be impartial, objective, that just doesn't happen. You get to know the players, especially since they're all so young. You are going to root for them, and I think what is vitally important, though, is that in that gray area where it is coming out that you're a hometown fan and you want your team to win, that you give the other team due, and that you treat the game as it should be treated, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, whether it's professional baseball, or whether it's Division III college sports.
And I think that's very important. I think you can be a local broadcaster, but not a homer. And it's funny because I've thought about this for years. I mean, when we had the Fury, the Comets, the Wizards, I mean, I'm a fan. I'm a fan first, and when those teams lost, I didn't quite sleep as well that night because I want the Wizards to win. I want the Comets to win. But Terry makes an excellent point. I mean, you're the home broadcaster, so obviously you are the Wizards broadcaster or you're the Comets broadcaster. You can have a little more flexibility when you're doing like a high school game between, say, a Snyder Northrop, when you don't have any real partialities. But the thing is, as long as you respect the other team and respect the game itself and then the quality of that game played. You know, you can't, your team can always do everything right and the other team can do everything wrong. You can't broadcast that way because you're not giving an impartial picture of what's going on. But you're always going to have a little bit of a slant, quite honestly, if you're a home broadcaster. I mean, I think I'm kind of for the Comets a little bit more than Port Huron.
And I know, Ryan, you and I for 3 years, in our own way, we lived and died, whether it was the women's basketball, men's volleyball. Of course, you know, you not only were a broadcaster, but you were a player, and now you're completing the triangle because you're a coach.
Yeah, it's very difficult, and both Ken and Terry bring up great points, because obviously my situation's a little different because I get the broadcast, and yet at the same time with men's volleyball, I still work out and practice with the team. So obviously my friendships and my ties with the team obviously is a little different from that perspective. And I try to be objective, but you know, it's very difficult to be objective, obviously, with your emotional ties into the program that you once played for 4 years, that you have loyalty to, and then of course you come out and depending on how we play, whether you don't play well, obviously your thoughts and feelings go out to that team. You do well, obviously your emotions run high. So it's a very tough situation, predicament. I try to be as objective as I can, and as Ken has mentioned, to respect the game, and which I do. And that way, it kind of keeps me balanced in regards to what I say to describe to the fans.
The relationship between the team that you're covering and yourself, interesting to say the least, but how do you go about cultivating it?
Well, I think college is different than the baseball. This year with the Wizards, I'll travel with them, so it won't take long at all. And but the college is a little different because there is some separation between yourself and the team, but then there's not. They see you, they know who you are. The football and basketball teams for me, but you still, I think it's still important to keep a little separation so that you can be objective about the hometown team that you're calling, so that you still, even though you might be rooting for them inside and it may sound like you're rooting for them, you still have to be objective enough to talk about the players and situations that come up during a game.
I think being around the team is vital, Mike. I mean, just take the Comets, for example. I try to go to practices as frequently as possible. I've even gone out socially with the guys from time to time, and there is, first of all, a steadfast rule. I mean, when things are off the record, they're off the record. But by being around the guys, by showing you care, first of all, about them and about the sport, and again, people who know me know I'm a big hockey fan, but it's the same with baseball. Going to the ballpark, taking the time to go out and meet the players, showing an interest in them, the managers, and if they know that you love the game. I mean, players and managers know whether you care about the sport or whether you don't. Whether you're just there to cover it for a couple of hours or whether you actually wish, boy, I wish I could go back 30 years and be a player. You know, and people who know me know that hockey is my passion, but also baseball, football, basketball as well. So you build the credibility through your relationships, and then you also know the rules. When there are things that are to be reported, when there are things that are not to be reported. And from that you build your rapport, and then you will get other storylines and other information that perhaps you can use during a report or a broadcast at a later date. But by being there and building up, you cultivate a relationship, you can even cultivate a friendship. And you make sure that friendship doesn't cloud objective reporting, and I think that can be balanced, I really do.
Last year, a good example along these lines, Wabash College went to the Final Eight in Division III football, played Mount Union, got beat like everyone else. But all season long, I would always make a time to go out to practice on Wednesday or Thursday. So they all saw me, the coaching staff saw me, and so when I needed something, if I needed to talk to one of the coaches or one of the players for 10 minutes, that was fine, because I was out there putting in time I didn't have to put in to watch them practice, to get to know them, to what should I expect, what shouldn't I expect of this. And that's part of the preparation, but it's also part of just trying to get familiar with who's playing and let them see me and let them see that I care about what they're doing.
Criticism. An interesting topic to say the least. Criticism from players. Let me backtrack just slightly. In the course of a broadcast, if you see a player that's not performing up to expectations, and as I say, by watching him practice, by seeing him perform in other games, and you see that the player's having a bad night, how tough is it to be accurate in saying he's just not having a good night, or do you tend to want to cut on him, or do you keep your mouth shut? What's the best road to go?
Well, Ken will find this out. I've had to tell players' parents, and this has only happened a couple times, that I'll never criticize a person, and by and large, I don't even criticize a play because I'm going to make mistakes. I'm trying hard to do a good broadcast, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be perfect. So if a ball goes through the second baseman's legs, the ball simply went through the second baseman's legs. I don't think I find a need to harp on that. Or during a college football game, a guy drops a pass, Jerry Rice drops passes. And so I don't think it's my responsibility to report on that. Let the newspaper guy write a longer article the next day, but I don't really view that as a play-by-play or even a color analyst. Their role is to describe the action, not to rip a player.
I agree with that. You have to be professional in your critiques and not personal in your critiques. And that comes obviously with understanding the sport. Obviously for new viewers that tune in, they want to know what's going on with such and such a play or such and such a player. It is very difficult in order to be critical in order to get your point across, and this is particularly what happened. But you don't want to take it to a personal level. You want to be professional. You want to scale, if you will, the outsides to say, you know, this is why such and such a player is hitting, you know, negative 500, or this is why the ball went through the second baseman's legs. You have to keep it on a professional level. Criticism is the hardest thing. And obviously for me, when I was 2 years away from school, getting my master's degree, and still at the same time working with the IPFW men's volleyball team, to be critical to some of the players as friends that I know, it's a very difficult task, very difficult.
And you have to be very careful that you don't get overly critical. And I've learned some lessons over the past 8 years with the Wizards. And I think you know that as well, Mike, that you know, in some of the broadcasts, and I wouldn't say I've been overly critical, but I think there were times I think I was learning in those earlier years, maybe I had too high expectations and lost sight of the fact that, yes, they are professionals and they're being paid to play this game, but a bulk of them are still teenagers or 21 or so tops. And so you can't expect major league plays out of minor league players. So I had to make sure, I'm not sure if being overly critical is accurate, but I had to make sure I didn't overanalyze. And you try to have fun with it. Like Terry says, if a ball goes between an infielder's legs, you can say, well, he just didn't get the tailgate down, and that's something he has to work on the next time. I don't try to harp on the fact that the guy is 0 for 5 and you know, hasn't even made contact with the baseball that night. And the one thing you have to be careful, I don't care what level it is, but at this case, we're at the minor league level, you know, a guy might be having a terrible night. And you try to get as close to the team as possible, but you might not know that on that particular night that guy is playing, and he probably should be sitting because he has the flu, but he's trying to really gut it out and play. So I've learned over the years probably to tame down my expectations. And we've had some brilliant baseball players come through here. Look at all the guys who are in the majors now. And this is a major league in the making process. But they're in the making, so I thought, you know, and by the way, if I knew what I was doing, I'd be down there with the uniform on. So I'm supposed to try to analyze and not overly criticize, and I think you'll learn to kind of temper that.
Two rules of thumb for me is I will endeavor to never say anything on the air that I wouldn't say to that player face to face. That would be one. And the second thing is, whether it be college sports on TV here or the Wabash College or even Division I, Duke University, or the minor leagues here, a lot of our listeners, a lot of the watchers are family members. And they're still pulling for their kids as if they were 10. And they may not understand they're getting a paycheck now. They may not understand fully that it's Division I volleyball now, that there are expectations. And what they'll do is they'll come to you and say, that's not fair that you said that about my son. And you know, maybe the response is, you know, what did I say? What is it that you didn't like? And but a lot of it in the back of my mind still is that a lot of people listening are family members. And that doesn't mean I think that we should sugarcoat it, but I think you just really, there is a fine line, like you pointed out, between being overly critical and but getting to that point to where you're still, it's an objective broadcast.
And it's always a learning process.
Yeah.
No matter how
Forever.
many times you do it, it's always a learning process.
And if you take Wizards baseball broadcasts, I mean, we are living in a different world now. We are talking Class A baseball, but everybody can listen in the internet age. You can listen on the internet to minor league sports, to Comet hockey, to just about anything. And oftentimes the parents or family members or friends of all the players, be they home or opposition, are listening in.
Right.
One final question, because I know we're out of time, but John knows I like to manufacture time. Prospective broadcasters that may be watching this show, what one piece of advice can you give? Kent, start with you.
Patience. It's a different industry than I got into 25 years ago, and I don't consider myself the ancient mariner, but you have to have patience, and you have to really have good people skills, time management skills, and you have to make sure you don't take it too seriously, because at the end of the day, it really is only TV or only radio. And I like to think we're there to inform. Sometimes you entertain a little by either wittiness or a sense of humor, but you have to have patience, and you have to realize you're in a people-related profession.
Terry?
Well, I'll be 40 in June, and so since I didn't get my first professional gig until last year, I would say patience is good, but perseverance, and just knowing that at any point in time in your life, if you want to do this, just get a tape recorder, go to a ballpark. If you're here, here in Fort Wayne, sit in the upper level here at the castle, come to an IPFW game with your tape recorder, and just start practicing, and then you just really have to be, I don't know if aggressive is the right word, but you can't be passive to try to get a job.
Yep. Ryan?
I agree with Kent in regards to don't taking yourself very seriously. But at the same time, be committed, study, work at it, especially if you want to get into this industry now with obviously satellite television and all these channels that come up now, especially with the internet. But be committed at it, work hard at it, but at the same time, don't take yourself seriously.
Just like going to school. On that note, we'll end this discussion. I wish we had time, but I can't thank each of you enough. I really appreciate you coming over. Continued success to each of you. Terry, again, welcome to Fort Wayne. Good luck with the Wizards. Rock, let's get that volleyball team turned around. we got to somehow, we're in 5th, 2 games out of 4th. I'd like to get at least one home match for the MIVA playoffs.
Three more weeks.
We got some work to do. Yep. So work them hard in practice.
Thanks.
And Kent, again, thanks so much. I know you've helped me a lot over the years, and I appreciate you coming on the show. So
always a pleasure.
It's really appreciative. We've been speaking with Kent Horman from Channel 33, Terry Byram, the brand new announcer for the Fort Wayne Wizards, and Ryan Perrott, my former sidekick here at Channel 56 and current assistant coach of men's volleyball. We'll take a break and continue with Mastodon Spotlight in just a moment.
Have you saved a life today?
I took 2 flood victims to a shelter.
I donated a day's pay to help a family that lost everything in a fire.
Have you saved a life today?
I teach a class in infant CPR.
I donated a pint of blood.
Have you saved a life today?
No. But today somebody saved mine.
The American Red Cross. Together, we can save a life.
In another lifetime, one of toil and blood. When blackness was a virtue, the road was.
If we do not take responsibility for saving animals from extinction, we allow a part of ourselves to die with them. Help World Wildlife Fund protect animals in the places where they live by ordering a free action kit. Together, we can leave our children a living planet.
Come in, she said, I'll give ya shelter from the storm.
I'm sick of this. I'm sick of dealing with you. I'm sick of.
I work 6 days a week.
Who do you think you
Stand
are?
up straight.
Don't you ever talk back to me again! You just shut up!
What are you crying about?
What a child learns about violence, a child learns for life. Teach carefully. We can show you how. Act Against Violence. Call 877-ACT-WISE for a free brochure.
wasn't going to school because I was hanging with the wrong crowd. And one day I was put into juvie for 2 stolen cars, robbery of a house, and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. When I was locked up, that's when I really realized that, I mean, it wasn't for me. Like, I was only in there 2 months, but to me that was enough. It'd be better for me to stay in school, just get my education. I think I'm happier now. I know I'm happier now.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. Again, we want to thank Ryan Perrott, Terry Byram, and Kent Horman for appearing on the program. Hope you enjoyed the discussion as well as I did. It was a lot of fun talking about broadcasting. Hope you got a better idea of what broadcasting is all about. Looking ahead, again, another busy weekend here at IPFW. First, let's talk men's volleyball. Wednesday night, the men will finish a 5-match road trip. They're going to take on the Oilers of the University of Findlay. They defeated Findlay earlier here at the Gates Center, so they're going to try to make it 2 in a row on Wednesday night. Friday night, Rutgers Newark comes to town for a non-league match, first serve at 7 p.m. And then on Saturday night, it's senior night. And the opponent, none other than the Ball State Cardinals. Cardinals won the first match. These two teams played it down in Muncie in straight sets. IPFW looking out for revenge. It'll be the final home match for seniors Jeff Patak, Ryan Staley, and Angel Ruiz. Again, first serve scheduled for 7 p.m. If you can't make it in person, tune in to College 56 Sports. Kelly Hartley and I will be here to call the action in the match. Senior night, Saturday night, men's volleyball against Ball State. Baseball. A lot of action for baseball this week. The men's team, Billy Gernon's squad, is going to be, if I check my schedule here real quick, get my notes, they're going to be playing at Michigan State Wednesday. Jason Horvath is going to be pitching for the team up in East Lansing. And they've got a couple of home doubleheaders this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, against Chicago State. They also play Friday a single game against Indiana Southeast. So chance to see the Mastodons 5 times this weekend at home in baseball. Come on out and see the team play. Softball, also a busy week. They're going to be at Michigan State on Saturday for a doubleheader. And then next Tuesday, here at home, they're going to entertain the Purdue Boilermakers. So 4 games in a row against Big Ten opposition, twice at Michigan State Saturday, and then next Tuesday at home here against Purdue. Come out and see the women play. Tennis team, Friday, both men and women's teams are going to Eastern Kentucky, and on Saturday they're going to be at Morehead State. So we wish Coach Eric Burns and his teams well there. And track and field continues to get ready for their outdoor season. They had a very good start last week at Purdue, so they'll be in action soon as well. That's what's going on next week. That's all the time we've got for our program this week. Again, thanks to Terry, Kent, and Ryan. Thanks to you for tuning in to see what's going on with IPFW Athletics. Again, come on out and support IPFW Athletics this weekend. Baseball, softball, volleyball, all going to be in action. And again, Saturday night, if you can't make it here, tune in to Channel 56 for Ball State and IPFW and volleyball. Again, that's it. Thanks for tuning in. I invite you to come back again next week for another edition of Mastodon Spotlight. But until then, this is Mike Ma saying have a great week and go Dons. As always, last week is a busy week here at IPFW on the athletic front. On this week's edition of Mastodon Spotlight, we'll take a look back to see what was going on with baseball and softball and tennis and volleyball. And also ahead in the program, we're going to talk to a couple of special guests to find out how IPFW student athletes are going to get bigger, faster, and stronger. Our show is called Mastodon Spotlight, and it's coming up next.
As time flows on, there are places we return to again and again. Places that comfort us with their serenity. Places that astound us with their beauty. Places where our memories come to life. Precious places. Timeless places. Places that your help can endure forever. I'm Paul Newman. Help the Nature Conservancy save the last great places around the world.
Hi again, everybody. I'm Mike Maz. Welcome once again to Mastodon Spotlight. Well, as I said a moment ago, every week seems to be a busy week here at IPFW on the athletic front. And let's do what we have been doing for several weeks now, take a review and see what did transpire. We'll start first with baseball. Coach Billy Gernon's squad had a number of games last week. We'll start with action last Tuesday. They went on the road to Eastern Kentucky. Took the bats with them, but unfortunately the defense and pitching wasn't there, as Eastern Kentucky scored 9 runs in each of the first 2 innings en route to a 29-13 victory. You heard right, baseball, 29-13, Eastern Kentucky over IPFW. On the offensive side, IPFW pounded out 15 base hits, including 5 by catcher Adam Gibson and 2 each by Jesse Shovik and Eric Lambert. In addition, Shovik had 5 runs batted in and Gibson 3, but defensively, IPFW gave up 31 base hits in addition to those 29 runs, and they committed 4 errors. Staff ace Jason Horvath took the loss. He only pitched 1 inning and gave up 7 earned runs, 9 runs, 7 of those earned. His record dropped to 3-2. Again, final score, Eastern Kentucky 29, IPFW 13. That was last Tuesday. The next day, team came back from Kentucky, had a brief stopover here, I think, for breakfast, and then traveled up I-69 to East Lansing, Michigan, where they took on the Spartans of Michigan State University, member of the Big Ten. And a little bit different ball game, not quite as many runs. In fact, David Zachary cleared the bases with a 3-run double in the second inning, gave IPFW a 3-1 lead. Michigan State came back, scored single runs in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th innings, took a 4-3 lead. IPFW tied it up with a run in the 7th. But in the bottom of the 8th, Michigan State scored 6 runs on 3 hits. One of those was a 3-run double. IPFW also committed a costly error in that inning, and the final score was Michigan State 10, IPFW 4. That took care of Wednesday's game. They had a scheduled game Friday here at home against Indiana Southeast. That was canceled due to rain. The weather wasn't much better Saturday and Sunday, but the baseball team did get 4 games in, all against Chicago State University, a member of the Mid-Con. Cougars came to town, and by the time they left Sunday night, they wished they hadn't, because IPFW played extremely well, won all 4 games, and we'll start off with the 2 games on Saturday. IPFW won those by scores of 9-0 and 5-0. In the first game, Kellen Marshall tossed a 1-hitter. He walked 4 and struck out 11. And Brandon Armstrong and Jacob Abramson each knocked in 3 runs. Again, first game, 9-0 Mastodons. Game 2, David Zachary took to the mound. He walked 1, struck out 10, and he pitched a 2-hitter. Ryan Keener, and Brandon Armstrong had 3 hits apiece. Final score of Game 2, IPFW 5, Chicago State 0. That was on Saturday. On Sunday, the good times continued to roll for IPFW. They won twice more. In Game 1 on Sunday, they won 2-0, scored both their runs in the 4th inning. Jason Horvath, coming off his disappointing performance against Eastern Kentucky, pitched much better. He went the distance, just gave up 2 hits, no runs, 2 hits, walked 1, struck out 7, as he won his 4th game of the year against 2 losses. And in Game 2, a much closer ball game, final score was 1-0 IPFW. Casey Rohan and Doug McDonald combined on a 5-hitter. Eric Lambert drove in the only run as he drove in Tyler Fowler from third base with a base hit in the 5th inning. Again, final score, IPFW 1, Chicago State nothing. So 4 consecutive victories, all by shutout, all here at home. Definitely a good, happy weekend for Billy Gernon and the Mastodons. Their record now is 11 wins, 13 losses, and a tie. Turn to softball. Coach Keith Fisher's squad was supposed to play at Michigan State last Saturday, a doubleheader. Unfortunately, the grounds were too wet. In fact, I heard they even had some snow up there in East Lansing on Saturday. That doubleheader was canceled as of this date. I don't believe it'll be rescheduled. They will play 3 doubleheaders later this week, weather permitting. We'll talk about that later. But softball coming into play this week, they have a record of 10 wins and 13 losses. So they're doing well for Division I softball right now. And again, we'll talk about their schedule later in the program. Tennis, briefly, both the men's and women's teams, coached by Eric Burns, took to the road this past weekend. They were at Eastern Kentucky on Saturday and Morehead State on Sunday. News not as good. Saturday, both the men and the women lost by scores of 7-0. On Sunday, the women lost again 7-0. The men lost 6-1. Michael Parker did get a match victory at number 2 singles. Tough times for the tennis squads, but they are gaining valuable experience, and hopefully some good things will happen before the season comes to an end in the next few weeks. Now, briefly, over to track and field. Coach Rick Norton's squad, both the men's and women's squad, took part in an invitational at Eastern Illinois last weekend. And no team scores were kept, but there were some individual performances we want to note. On the women's side, Lauren Simpson, freshman, won the 5,000-meter run in a time of 19 minutes and 19 seconds. On the men's side, John Grenier was third in the hammer throw with a toss of 54.38 meters. And in the 5,000-meter run for men, IPFW Chris Bolin and Paul Traheen finished 6th and 7th, respectively. So some good performances for the men's and women's track and field teams. We also want to note, as we air this broadcast, that an announcement was made earlier in the week by Athletic Director Mark Pope that men's indoor track and field and outdoor track and field will be discontinued as a sport, as a varsity accredited sport here at IPFW, following the completion of this outdoor season. I know there was a lot of thought going into this decision, but the decision was made, and men's track and field will cease to exist, both indoor and outdoor, as a varsity-approved competitive sport starting with the 2003-2004 season. So we thought you might like to know that little tidbit of information. Women's track and field will continue on as it has right now. Also, one other note, Coach Rick Norton has resigned as the head coach for men's and women's track effective at the end of the current season. He will be replaced next year by cross-country coach Mike Frucci. So Mike will take over women's track as well as men's and women's cross-country. We wish Mike well in that endeavor. Now, last but not least, we turn our attention to men's volleyball. Big weekend this past weekend for IPFW, the final 2 home matches of the regular season. On Friday night, a non-league match, the Volleydons took on Rutgers Newark, and they were successful, winning the match in 3 sets by scores of 30-27, 30-25, and 30-27. Senior Jeff Patak had 17 kills. Senior Angel Ruiz had 11 kills, and sophomore Dennis Santiago from the setter's position had 38 assists and 7 digs. It was a good win at home. Set things up for the regular season finale, senior night, this past Saturday night. The foe, none other than arch rival Ball State, a big, important MIVA conference match, and IPFW came out on top by scores of 30-24, 31-29, and 30-25. For the match, Jeff Patak had 20 kills, 9 of those came in the first set. He really set the tone for the match. You'll hear more from Jeff in just a few moments. Matt Zbyszewski had 13 kills and 9 digs, and Dennis Santiago had 41 assists and 6 digs. We had a crowd of over 1,700 fans here at the Heritage Sports Center, and the place was rocking, and the team played well. And again, the Dons won in 3. They improved to 13-8 overall. 9-6 in MIVA play. Still a slight outside chance for a home match in 2 weeks of the playoffs, but certain things have to fall into place. What we want to do now is we want to take you back to the completion of that match. Kelly Hartley joined me for the call, and you will hear the last 3 or 4 points of the match, followed by interviews with head coach Arnie Ball, senior Jeff Patak, and senior Andrew Ruiz. So let's go ahead and bring you that action now from last Saturday night.
Little floater. Shunzo. Zadima. Blocked by Staley. Shunzo. Window. Blocked by Patak. Match over. Dons win. Fittingly, a senior, Jeff Patak, blocked the last Ball State shot. IPFW wins the set 30-25. They win the match 30-24, 31-29, 30-25. They improve their record to 13-8 overall, 9-6 in the conference. Ball State dropped to 16-8, 9-5 in the conference. And one of their matches is Ball State has left is still against Ohio State. Players and coaches congratulating each other. We hope to have Arnie Ball with us, and hopefully some of the seniors, if time permits. Okay, it is working, Coach. Talk about this match tonight.
Well, what an exciting time for our kids. You know, we've been up and down all year, and certainly we were down there and they beat up on us pretty good, and it's such a natural rivalry for us. I thought our kids played very consistent tonight. You know, we didn't have any ups and downs. We just served the ball pretty well. We passed the ball really well and blocked some balls. I just thought we were very, very consistent from the beginning to the end.
Talk about the play of your seniors, if you can. Jeff had a great night, 20 kills. Angel, Ryan Staley, they all contributed to this play.
Ryan Libero, we turned him loose. He's done a really nice job, and he did it again tonight. I thought he passed the ball well. Obviously made some great defensive plays when we needed to be made. Of course, Jeff's been playing well, you know, in the last 3-4 weeks. And when we moved Angel to the outside, he seems to be comfortable out there and doing a nice job. The unsung hero of our team really is Mike Dyga. I think Mike Dyga doesn't see many balls, but he touched a lot of balls, and Sudar finally came alive offensively tonight as well.
This team has played so well. You've won 6 out of 7 now. Still a possible outside shot for a home quarterfinal match if the cards fall right, and Kelly's working on shuffling the cards for us. But this team is really playing well of late.
Yeah, of course we'd like to play at home, but you know, if we don't, we're playing well enough right now. We play pretty well on the road too. Every NCAA Final Four I've been to has been somewhere else when we've qualified, so if that's an omen, we'll play on the road.
Can you talk about senior night and the crowd tonight, what that meant to you?
The crowd is wonderful. You know, it's always a great crowd with Ball State because Ball State brings a lot of people, and the rivalry between us has been for the last 23 years. The crowd certainly makes a difference. The band makes a difference. But when you play well, the crowd makes a difference. If you don't play well, the crowd doesn't mean a whole lot in regards to trying to generate enthusiasm. So that makes a big difference as well. Certainly senior night, it's always great to be able to recognize kids that have done so much for our program. You know, Jeff and Ryan will both graduate, and Angel's got 1 semester left, and so it's a wonderful honor for those kids. And it's been a while since we beat Ball State, so I'm sure it's sweet for those 2-3 kids especially.
And there was a different serving philosophy tonight, was there not? When I say different, were you trying to attack their swing hitters a little bit more?
The original intent was to go after number 6 because we took him out of the match down at their place. He's an up and down guy and has been playing pretty well, and we thought if we could neutralize him in passing and not being able to swing to the outside a little bit, that we could neutralize their left side. Of course, the other guy's been playing well for them is Josh Lee, and he didn't contribute a whole bunch tonight as he has been. He's really a fine player. And then, Kelly, it kind of switched because the libero couldn't pass very well. And all of a sudden, we were going, okay, if he's not going to pass the ball, we'll serve him. And I thought that was very effective as well.
Frustrate him. And then your philosophy in spinning in Game 3, what were you trying to accomplish there?
In Game 3?
In Game 3.
Did we spin?
I think that you did something different.
Actually,
was
we
in
started in row 6 all the games, and the coaches we were talking about that downstairs because I'm known to do that, to spin our lineup
for a matchup.
And I finally said, you know what, it's working. We're not going to screw with it.
Congratulations. We're going to hope to talk to Jeff Patak perhaps in a minute.
Thanks, guys.
Congratulations on a big win.
Congratulations.
Head coach Ernie Ball, and we hopefully are going to get Jeff Patak, see if, and hopefully the mic will work again some more. If not, we're going to ask him to chummy up near Kelly so he can be heard. Jeff, great night tonight. You set the tone for the match in set number 1. You had 9 kills right off the bat.
It was a big goal for us to get out to a big start today. We knew Ball State was relying on us going to our pins, myself, Angel, and I'm not near the microphone, I'm sorry. Myself, Angel, and Maddie especially, and we did well. They didn't really block us too much, and that was our main goal of the game.
What a senior night. You've been here 5 years because you were hurt last year, and
It's been long, man. Too long. Too long.
Your thoughts tonight? I mean, this crowd was into it. You were into it. Your teammates got into it. Obviously, you feel pretty good.
Man. It was a great time. Great way to end my career here at IPFW, and the fans are amazing. It's been so much fun.
Well, if the numbers work out in the Mastodons' favor, we could end up here for a first round MIVA. Of course, a lot of things have to occur, but at least you got our part done tonight by winning in 3.
Yeah, hopefully we could play here again. I would love to, because I hate playing at Ball State.
And I do have to point out and maybe ask you about the fact that do you feel like towards the end here, in terms of leadership, you stepped up? You're certainly playing with a little bit more emotion and enthusiasm, and I think your teammates obviously have a lot of confidence in you, but you outwardly showing that kind of emotion is a little bit different.
I finally got some emotion. Back in my freshman and sophomore years, I was crazy. I had a lot of emotion. Then it kind of went away, the past couple of years. And now, finally
Is it maturity? Do you want to call it maturity?
I say a little more maturity, I mean, it's been a long time, so it's been fun.
You've got 2 good matches yet left next week on the road. Penn State, a match that we could have won here. A little payback again, just like we did tonight. And then you finished the conference season off against Mercyhurst. Can you and your team keep this mental high that you've developed over the last 3.5 weeks?
I said earlier, it's good to, peak at the end of the season because there's a lot of teams that peak in middle season, the beginning of the season, and we're peaking right now, and we still got a ways to go.
Congratulations on a big win.
Great, thank you.
And also, belated congratulations on being named National Player of the Week 2 weeks ago for that great effort against Loyola.
Thanks a lot, man.
Good luck down the road.
Thanks.
Senior Jeff Patak, and if we can, real briefly, we're going to try to get maybe 30 to 60 seconds out of Angel Ruiz, who's right here as well. And before we have to say goodbye.
Hi, Angel. How you doing? Great win. How does it feel being a senior in the Gates Center, ending with a win at the end of the season? How does it feel?
Really good. Ball State's a really good team, which in the last night, senior night, is a really good team to play with. It was fun tonight. There was a good crowd here. A lot of support, and it was good for us to be a team that we might face on the quarterfinals.
Do you feel the team is ready and certainly focused going forward, a lot of energy and confidence going into the MIVAs?
Yes, I think we are playing better. For the last 3 weeks, we've been playing better with the new lineup, me as an outside hitter. We've been doing a lot of good things. And now we feel really confident. Dennis is feeling more confidence. I'm feeling more confidence in my passing. We're establishing our middles really well like we did today. And I feel confident that we're going to go farther than the last few years.
And one real quick question. Are you comfortable on the outside? You're playing a different position the last, 5 to 7 matches or so. Are you comfortable there now? You certainly look it.
Yeah, I feel good. I feel excited also. It's a different position. The swings I get really excited when I'm going to swing because it's a high set, and in the middle it's just so quick that out there I just have to wait and then explode to swing at the ball. And it's been interesting for the last few weeks. I think the team has been doing really well also.
Again, Angel, congratulations on a big win. Let's keep the ball rolling and see if somehow we can make our way down to Long Beach in about 4 or 5 weeks.
Hopefully, I hope so. Thank you.
Again, that was action from Saturday night's volleyball match with Ball State. Hope you enjoyed the end of the match and saw the excitement, the fans come on the floor, and we hope you enjoyed the comments of head coach Arnie Ball and seniors Jeff Batak and Angel Ruiz. That's what happened last week. Again, a busy week. Time for a break. We will take that break and then return with more of Mastodon Spotlight in just a moment.
They came from every corner of the country. From small towns and big cities. But they all shared one thing in common. They belonged to a family called Marines. A tough and determined few, dedicated to protecting everything we hold sacred. And still they come. Celebrate the 225-year history of those proud few who have earned the title Marine.
Hi, I'm Joe Perry.
And Steven Tyler from Aerosmith, here for RAD, recording artists, actors, and athletes against drunk driving. Never, never, never let someone you know get behind the wheel if they've been drinking. Friends don't let friends drive drunk.
I like to volunteer for the neighborhood emergency response team to help the firefighters. As you know, I was Fireman of the Year 3 times.
You're Mariano Rivera.
Thank you.
Fireman of the Year is a baseball award.
Yes.
You're not actually a fireman.
No.
Fireman of the Year, huh?
Just a few more minutes.
When you help your neighbors, you help your nation. Everyone can do something.
Visit us at usafreedomcorps.gov.
Can you pass the salt, Dad? Salt is to pepper as gregarious is to... Oh, no, not more SAT questions.
In ancient Rome, salt was a form of currency. True or false?
False?
True.
Son, can you locate sodium?
Or chloride?
There are tons of ways to help with your kids' learning. Find the really good ones on connectforkids.org.
You have 3.5 grams of salt and a 5-gram slug. What's the rate of shrivel?
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. We want to take some time now and talk about a new area here at IPFW Athletics, and it's called strength and conditioning. As I mentioned earlier in the show, to be competitive at the NCAA Division I level, IPFW's coaches are finding out that the student athletes here have to be bigger and faster and stronger. And we've been kind enough to have come over and talk to us a little bit about what IPFW is going to try to do in that direction. We're going to welcome back head athletic trainer Dan Fox. And to Dan's right, we welcome Jamie Gordon to the program. Jamie is with Orthopedics Northeast. Your title is, we asked before we started taping, administrator for both Performance One and Sport One.
Correct.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Dan, we'll start it off with you because you are always in contact, you and your staff, with all the student athletes here on campus and the coaches. The program we're going to talk about, I believe, is called Performance One. Talk a little bit about how it came into being here at IPFW.
When I began about 3 years ago here, one of the things we do when we first enter a situation is assess everything, and that was obviously one of the weaker areas that we've had. We've got a beautiful facility over there, but as an athletic program, I don't believe we'd even tapped a minimal portion of those resources. A lot of the strength and conditioning have been left to different coaches, and obviously with the number of coaches that we have, you have different philosophies and different techniques. You're using old school stuff, you're using some new stuff that you might have picked up from somebody else just recently. We needed to really make the change, and we'd investigated it over a number of years. Performance One came about a couple of years ago and really got into full fruition this year. and we just thought this would be perfect dovetail fit. We've got the facility, we've got the athletes. We just let's get a really knowledgeable staff in there that'll work with our coaching staff, and they've met everybody, and everybody, back and forth with ideas. Being the staff of Performance, when I don't want to take any of Jamie's spotlight, are very athletic oriented. They've been athletes or currently are athletes. Some of them are athletic trainers, such as myself, exercise science people. They know what's going on. They've worked at major universities and have been involved, so they know what it takes to bring the athlete to the next level. God made them the way they are. We're just going to bring them up a little bit bigger and a little bit faster and stronger, and with the help of Performance One, we're doing that right now.
As we go along in the explanation of Performance One, one thing I want to stress, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is not just something that they're going to do for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. This is a long-term program, is it not?
It's actually, for the students here, it's actually an entire year program. We take into account when their season ends, what types of physical goals we have at particular times of the year, and at what point we want them to peak with their conditioning. Obviously, there are certain contact times that the coaches can have with kids, and that's one of the real benefits that we've seen so far with Division I regulations and things like that. We can spend some additional time with the kids that the coaches may not be able to due to NCAA regulations and things like that, especially at the Division I level. Well, we design our program to fit the goals of the entire year. For instance, when we start off, we'll take basketballs, for instance. They just finished. The phase that we call it that they're in now would be to just build general strength, a little bit of size. Over the summer, we'll start transitioning into a more power phase, so we'll start working on explosiveness and jumping and things like that. Then as the season approaches, we'll start working on speed and conditioning and kind of taper off on some of the other things and get them set up on a strength program that they can do to maintain through the year. And we want them to peak when the team's ready to play. So we devised the program, not just as you said, not to get a 2 or 4 week goal, kind of whip them into shape and turn them loose. It's to follow them and progress them all the way through so that we can actually build on each phase. We can actually build the strength, we can build the power. We don't want to just make them bigger. We could put them in the weight room and beef them up, but that's not necessarily going to make them a better athlete. We're going to do everything that it takes, consult them nutritionally and things like this, that it's going to take them to not just get bigger, but to get faster, to get stronger, to do some things that's going to help them resist injury later through the year as they start to play and go through the rigors of a season with travel and classes and things like this. You alluded to how Performance One started. We actually started in June of 2001. We started with just one person, myself, and we've grown to a staff of 5. Our specialty areas are really biomechanical analysis, so we'll use video analysis to see how a kid runs or how they jump or how they land and things like that, and analyze the video. We have 2 exercise physiologists on staff and an athletic trainer and another guy who has a specialty area in athletics and conditioning and things like that. So we have a very well-rounded and very well-educated staff. I would say in the scope of Division I athletics, we probably have one of the most educated staffs around. We don't have the luxury of being able to draw on graduate assistants with bachelor's degrees, so we pull all of our people, we hire all of our people in and employ them with their experience intact. One of the things that we do, being an outside entity, is that we also do public programs. So we have youth soccer training and other types of training. And like Dan said, this is kind of where the dovetail really came into play, is we needed a place to do our services and things like that, and IPFW needed the expertise. So we kind of meshed the two together. Now we're bringing kids on campus to do other things. We're working with the athletes during the day when other kids are, high school and junior high kids are in school. Summertime is going to be a really fun time with all the athletes on campus and the kids from the summer coming in. So you'll see kids out in the grassy areas doing speed drills and agility drills and things like that. So we're really excited to have this relationship, and we've seen the huge potential of the athletes that are on campus now. Not to mention the athletes that are going to be recruited and coming in the next couple of years that we'll have from the day they step on campus. But the potential of all the teams that we've worked with is just huge as far as physical potential, and we're just here to help them maximize that. Not necessarily that we're going to do it for them, but we're just going to guide them in everything that they're going to need to do to get to that next level. The things we're doing are things that all the other Division I schools are doing. These programs are very similar to what Michigan State and Notre Dame and Purdue and all these other schools are doing, and now we've been able to provide it for IPFW.
Before we start going into detail and exactly what steps are being taken, talk, if you can, Jamie, a little bit about, you talk about the experience factor. IPFW, as we're taping this interview, participates in technically 16 sports.
Mm-hmm.
You have got men's and women's soccer, you've got men's and women's basketball, you've got men's and women's tennis.
Mm-hmm.
You've got men's and women's track and field, indoor, outdoor, those we mentioned earlier in the program. Outdoor track and field for men is going to cease to exist after the completion of this season. You've got men's baseball, you've got women's softball. Trying to think, Dan,
Cross country.
Cross country, men's and women's cross country. Different sports, and the norm, I think you would agree today, the norm in college, you don't have many Antoine Randall-Els anymore who participate in more than one sport.
Mm-hmm.
You still have the exceptional athlete that does that, but for the most part, student athletes that are coming to IPFW are here, besides going to classes to get their degree, are here to participate in one particular sport.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about compiling your experience, because something that you're going to suggest across country may not work for someone who's playing tennis, which may not work for someone who's playing basketball. Talk about acquiring the experience and how you have to sort this out per sport.
Really what we do is it doesn't require any participatory experience in the sport. Essentially what we do is we'll sit down and we'll analyze the sport itself. Basketball and soccer are relatively similar in their energy demands. So a player's going to play approximately this amount of time. They're going to be full speed at some times and at a sub-max speed at other times. Baseball is more of a complete rest and big bursts of power and energy. Softball much the same way. So we really just analyze the sport itself and what activity demands. What are the athletes doing during those things? Obviously we don't need to concentrate as much on increasing vertical leap for a soccer player, but speed is a premium. For basketball players, both speed and vertical leap are at a premium. For volleyball players, shoulder strengthening is really, really important, not just for injury prevention, but for velocity of serves and kills and things like that, as well as the vertical leaps and things like that. So we analyze the sport itself, find out what activities, what energy demands. Is it a high intensity? Is it a relatively constant intensity? Is it intervals? And then we just go from there and build the program based on what they're going to need to do in their activity. And that's the philosophy that we would use for anything, whether it be for the athletes here at IPFW or whether it be for an office worker who wants to run a marathon or any type of activity. We'll just analyze what it is that they're going to need to do and how to get them from where they are now to the point where they're ready to participate.
My wife's watching the show. She'll get mad because she'll think you could do something for this out-of-shape broadcaster. I think you brought over a video, and I think, John, anytime you'd like to start it, we got a video that we're going to air, and when we see it up on the monitors, maybe you can explain some of the actual on-hands happening.
Okay.
And hopefully we'll have that video here momentarily. There we go.
This is what we would do a typical training or a testing session. What we're doing here is we're testing 40-yard sprint time. This is a balance test where we have them stand on one foot and lean out. This is an upper body power test where we see how far they can throw a ball of standard weight. What we usually do is test them at the beginning. For most of the athletes here, we'll test them multiple times during the year so we can keep track of how much faster are they getting, how much more vertical leap are they getting, how much more upper body power are they getting. So we can do all these types of things, and we try to keep it as standardized as possible. You'll see here, you can kind of see the cones and the little stands there. We use infrared timing so that we don't have the error of someone hitting a stopwatch. We do a screen also where we can look at their flexibility and things like that. So we try to keep everything as standardized as we can. That way we can reproduce the measurements 4 months later, 6 months later, a year later, and each time we test them, we'll have good data on that. The potential here is obviously in the long run, we can use this data not just for keeping track of how much better they're getting, but for instance, if a player gets injured partway through the year, well, now we've got numbers that say this is how fast you were before you got injured. This is how high you could jump before you got injured. Dan can then say, pull out this sheet and say, you know what, you need to be 90% of what you were before we're going to let you participate. We know exactly 90% of what. And psychologically, it'll help the kids to know, you know, I think I'm ready, but I'm not sure. We'll test you. Numbers show that you're every bit as fast as you were before you got injured. You're ready. And that's kind of a reassurance to the athlete to say, okay, my body is ready and I'm ready to go.
Dan, let's talk hypothetical for a moment. We see here what Jamie and his group are doing to try to make things better for the athlete. Not this sports season, knock on wood, but last season here at IPFW, there were a number of knee injuries. And I'm thinking, off the top of my head, I think of Jeff Patak and Maddie Zabashevsky. There was, I think it was Crystal Fisher, I believe, from a softball team, and there are a few others, soccer and so forth. In hindsight, and hindsight's always 20/20, do you think if we had had this maybe 2 years ago that some of those injuries might have been prevented?
In a couple of situations, probably not. Collisions and just bad falls, you know, bad break. Sorry the pun, but you're not going to prevent an ACL or anything like that. Repetitive problems, yeah, I really do. One of the things that we have seen with the use of this program just recently is the potential that not only that the coaches see in this athlete, but what the athlete finds out about themselves. They're finding that, hey, I can do this now. I can do this better or faster. I can get above the rim now. I can do it over and over again too. Before it took me all day to do it once. Now I can do it at will. And they're finding their potentials, and that's very important for an athlete to realize what they're made out of. And last night's game, obviously, you know, and they have the women playing tonight. At the beginning of the year, that's always their goal: win an NCAA championship. Only one person or one team can say that they've done it. It's a long season, and it's the same with anything: football, baseball. I mean, you see how the College World Series coming up here in June. They've got to prepare themselves now to get to that point, and that's what we're doing. We're starting now, looking forward a year. Ask me this question in a year, and I'll probably have a total different answer for you. Are there a lot of sore people right now? There's some people that are a little achy, but you know what? They've never worked this hard, or they haven't worked this way before, I should say. But they're proving to themselves it can be done.
I know a couple of weeks ago, it's not it's just the student athletes that are involved in this. I had a chance to talk with Bruce Patterson, who's the head women's basketball coach, and Bruce will kill me if he sees this, but he found out firsthand how tough it is, at least in the initial going. But he also thought, he made the comment to me that one of the reasons he was doing it is to prove to his team that, hey, if the coach can do it and the coach is a wee bit older than you, you can do it and you can persevere and get bigger and better and stronger. But it was interesting seeing Bruce because he looked awfully tired that particular day. Briefly, if we can, obviously the program is geared for the long haul. Mm-hmm. How much time during the day do they actually work on some of these exercises?
It's very, very minimal, and we only work them a total of about 60 to 90 minutes. We keep our intensity pretty high. We use what we call tempo, so soccer team, their tempo is much higher because their season's coming up sooner than basketball. Come into summer, the basketball tempo will pick up, so they have much less rest period between each exercise. How many games other than baseball, softball last more than 90 minutes of total playing time? Not very many. Some are significantly less than that. Mm-hmm. And baseball, softball, obviously 90 minutes of working hard will equate to an entire game or far more than that. So in 90 minutes we can get done just about everything we need to get done, which works great for the kids because they've got classes, they've got tests to study for, they've got other things going on that they need to do, and it's just not very efficient to make them come for 4 or 5 hours a day. We get done what we need to get done. They work hard when they're here, and then they're done. One of the things I wanted to mention with some of the things that we do outside of IPFW when we're here is we basically have different classes that that we offer to the public that kind of are patterned after each phase of what we do here at IPFW. Essentially what we've done is we'll take an IPFW athlete and take it all the way through our entire program. So there are, you might see in literature at some point that we're having, that we have different types of classes. Well, basically what we did is we compiled that all into an entire year program, and that's what we do with the IPFW athletes. So, you know, if you want to come over,
you're reading my mind, because we're almost out of time. But what I wanted to ask, we're talking about a program that obviously it involves the family here at IPFW, the student athletic family. For the general public, who might be interested, and they may see this and say, "Hey, this is a way that I can feel better and be better and live longer." A number that they can contact you at?
It's 484-8900. And you can talk to any one of the staff members. We have lots of different types of programs at varying levels of intensity. If you come over, we're not going to treat you like the men's basketball team. Don't worry. You'll be able to walk the next day, albeit maybe a little bit sore, but we'll take your current fitness levels and things like that into account.
Get that number one more time.
484-8900.
Thanks so much for coming over.
Thank you.
Both of you, appreciate the information. If things work out, you're going to see bigger, faster, and stronger student athletes here at IPFW next year. But Dan Fox, Jamie Gordon, thanks so much for coming over today.
Thank you.
We've been speaking with Dan Fox, our head athletic trainer here at IPFW, and Jamie Gordon, administrator for Performance One, Sport One from Orthopedics Northeast. We'll take a break and come back with some final thoughts, when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
I'm Richard Dean Anderson. On Stargate SG-1, we discovered that the Stargate device could be used to explore an endless variety of adventures. Your device for endless adventure is a good education. No matter what your goals might be, you'll go a lot farther if you don't drop out. So keep your options open. Stay in school.
Step out of the car. Open up the trunk. Check inside.
What's going on?
Hands on the car.
Bingo.
Got it.
Today's teenagers, the way people talk, you'd think they can't do anything right. It's just not so. We get to know over 300,000 kids a year, smart kids, who know what they want. They believe in themselves, and they believe in America. Some go straight to college. Others choose to learn leadership, discipline, courage, and commitment first with us. Today's military, making a stronger America, one good kid at a time.
A new century is coming, and with it, 1,000 questions. Will your family ever be in harm's way? Will a small town in Texas be hit with a hurricane? Will your daughter ever need a new kind of blood treatment? We have no crystal ball for the world that awaits. Just one promise. We'll be there.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. Hope you enjoyed our chat with Dan Fox and Jamie from Performance One to get an idea how IPFW student athletes are supposed to get bigger, stronger, and faster next year. Want to remind you of what's ahead this week on the athletic front for IPFW. Later this week, IPFW's men's and the men's baseball team and the women's softball team are going to be at Purdue University. That was on Tuesday. We'll have the results next week's show. Wednesday, baseball. Butler University comes to town, a 1 o'clock game. We'll have the results for that for you next week as well. Softball goes to Western Michigan. We'll let you know what happened there next week. On Thursday, baseball goes up to Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Central Michigan University will be the opponent. Friday, men's and women's tennis is on the road. They're going to be at Eastern Illinois. On Friday, they're going to play Tennessee State, and on Saturday, they're going to play Eastern Illinois. So they'll be overnight Friday, Saturday, men's and women's tennis at Eastern Illinois. Volleyball, next Friday night, a non-league match against 9th-ranked Penn State. Saturday night, the completion of the regular season, the Mastodons will play at Mercyhurst. Hope they come home with a couple of wins. That would make it 8 out of their last 9, and they'll really be fired up for the start of MIVA tournament playing next week. And then finally, on Saturday, besides the volleyball match and the tennis, you've got Eastern Michigan here at IPFW for women's softball. Baseball, IPFW is at Valparaiso. And then on Sunday, this coming Sunday, tennis, Akron comes here to town to play IPFW. Baseball, Valparaiso comes here for a 12 o'clock game. And tennis, Toledo and Tri-State are going to be here for men's tennis. So, as always, a lot of action going on here this coming weekend at IPFW. That's about it for this week's show. Again, thanks to everyone who appeared. And as always, thanks to you, the viewer, for tuning in to see what's going on with IPFW Athletics. We invite you to come back again next week. We've got a special show lined up. If all goes well, we're going to be talking to a number of our senior, soon-to-be departing student athletes, and going to ask them what it's been like for the last 3, 4, or 5 years to participate in intercollegiate athletics here at IPFW. But that's next week's show. Until next week, this is Mike Moss saying, have a great week, and go Dons.